Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto is neglected by family Fem Kyuubi. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by WickedFairy17 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Naruto's blue orbs flickered once again around the room that had become his prison for the last 2 days. It had been his 3rd birthday when they had grabbed him from his favorite hiding place and brought him here. Part of him realized how useless it was trying to escape these people and the pain they caused. His body protested at the pain as he tried in vain to free himself from the cross-like table they had staked him to. Even with his unusual fast healing, he couldn't heal his hands and feet if he couldn't somehow get the spikes out of them. They would return soon to hurt him again. They always came back hurting him in more ways than he thought was humanly possible. They kept telling him he was evil, a demon, a monster that everyone would rejoice when he died, and every time he would say he wasn't a monster they would hurt him worse than before. It had been 2 days with continuous torture. He couldn't take much more of it. This pain had him almost wishing for death to come and take him in his arms. Then he heard the sound of rumbling and his heart fell into his stomach as he stared up at his torturers' faces, all placed behind weird contorted human masks. They started in on him again, and he receded back into his mind trying to somehow cope with the situation. As they had the other times, they forced that sick purple pill into his mouth. It would make sure he didn't pass out from the pain. It went through different phases, from plain old beat him with lead objects, to cutting gashes repeatedly along his arms and legs, pouring salt into the wound afterwards. You know, if you're wondering why we haven't killed you yet, it's because the Hokage said to make you suffer before you die, one said while taking another gruesome-looking nail before hammering it into the tips of his fingers. Aji-chan, was Naruto's rasped reply. You lying? They'd scared at him, mocking him. Well, why don't we just bring him in here to enjoy himself too? Slowly killing a demon is quite fun. Naruto never saw one nod to the other in understanding before he left the torture room. They continued to hurt him for what seemed to Naruto like hours. He still held on barely to his sanity. The only thought keeping him from giving in was that they were lying and that the old man would come to save him this time. When the door opened to reveal the aged Hokage, hope glimmered in his eyes until he saw the glimmer of hate in his eyes. He stepped to him, taking a lead hammer in his grasp before he brought it down onto his legs and then his arms, shattering the bones. He screamed then, voice gripped in emotional and physical pain as tears streamed down his eyes. Why? Because I hate you. You're a monster. You're evil and deserve to die a pain-filled death. And you wondered why I never stopped the villagers from beating you? Never comforted you after they tossed you out of the orphanage? I hate you, said Sarutobi with a hate-filled voice as he glared at Naruto. His world, his mind, his sanity and most of his humanity shattered, then leaving a dead-eyed Naruto to stare on in resignation as everyone he thought cared about him in turn entered the room to give him what he deserved, from the old man and his daughter that worked at the ramen shop, to Iruka who sometimes talked to him, then back to the old man Hokage. They all beat him, leaving him with nothing, not even his sanity. He died inside that day. It continued for a week before help finally came, but by then Naruto had long since lost everything that had made him the bright-eyed, innocent, happy kid he was. Any other would have died long ago when they began this torture session, but not him. Not him. He lived through it for longer than any human should have been capable of. Hokage Tower. Sarutobi had cried very few times in his life in front of other, but he couldn't stop the tears when his Umbu told him what had transpired the week and a half Naruto had been missing. How could anyone do that to such a small cute little boy? He felt a bile rise up in his throat as they described the scene to him, in detail, what Naruto's condition was when they had gotten him off that crucifixion table. None of them could understand how he was alive. Even with the demon helping him, he should by all rights be dead now. When he dismissed him, a medic came in to report his condition. Naruto was currently comatose, and almost unrecognizable with his mangled body. They had managed to stop the internal bleeding and were working on stabilizing him. He may survive if he lived through the night. Naruto. It was cold and dark wherever he was, but the darkness embraced him, holding him to it, coaxing him to invite it into what remained of his tiny, shattered, insane heart. He couldn't see anything but knew where he was. Somehow he knew he was not dead yet. Eventually he made his way in this utter blackness surrounding him to a chamber that held the only light in this entire place, it seemed. In it was a cage with a paper reading seal on it. In the cage was a similar darkness. It was then 2 huge glowing red orbs that were eyes opened, and a feral smile filled with sharp fangs gave this darkness its face. In a flash a claw swiped at him, stopping inches from his face. He didn't move, looking to it with his dead eyes. Turning to the owner of the appendage he asked, well, kill me if you want to. Stating it as if it was the most logical thing to do. An evil grating chuckle filled the air as the claws were pulled back to the eyes and smile of the cage. You are amusing, child. Yes, I could get used to this new you. How about it, kid? Do you want to kill the ones who have hurt you, slowly taking pleasure in their pain? As the voice spoke, the eyes and smile shrank until they were human in size before a beautiful naked woman with 9 tails stepped from the shadows. She had bloody red riot of curls that hung loose down her back, covering her chest from view. Her tails were wrapped around her in front, covering some but still revealing more than what was decent. She had whisker marks on each cheek much like himself, but she also had deadly-looking claws on both her hands and feet. Who are you? He asked, turning his dead eyes to meet hers. Even his voice had an edge to it, making it sound as dead as his eyes looked. I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune that the fourth Hokage sealed in your body when he understood that he couldn't kill me, the foolish mortal. I am the reason these filthy monkeys hate you and wish you dead, HN. So what is this place? Are we staying here until we go to hell together? She just chuckled evilly again, saying, no, we are in your mind. You came here because you almost died. Almost died? Yes, foolish Ninjen. Almost died. I will not allow your death because it means mine. Naruto stood there shocked. His death meant hers because of the seal that bound them together, and in some ways she was the only being he could trust because of this link. What little remained of his heart was happy with this forced protection. He had someone he could talk to. A slow, creepily empty smile lit his face. His eyes remained dead. Then I am the only one you protect, and you're the only one that I can trust because my death means yours. Before she could comment on this, Naruto's form faded away, leaving a very confused demon behind. Her vessel had basically said they were all each other had left in the world. Admittedly, this was true. She had never had the chance to mother kids before she was sealed, and she had neither living family nor a mate. She was alone in this world, much like this child that was her prison. She had taken pleasure when he had been tortured because she knew that Naruto was his son, the one who cursed her here in the first place. But she had been there when he had snapped and seen it shatter along with any humanity he had left in his small body. A slow grin slid across her face. He had nothing human left. She had checked, only a little emotion remained, and he had directed it at her. It would be the ultimate revenge to turn him into her own little demon, molding him to be everything that she was herself, and everything that man hated. Oh yes, it would be sweet indeed that when they meet their end in this world, Naruto would turn his cold, lifeless eyes to his father, and remain at her side as they were welcomed in hell. He would wish himself out of existence when he saw his precious son, the hero, loyal to the demon that had destroyed his home and caused his death. Naruto awoke, noting that the pain had dulled somewhat, making him wonder if the men had started to heal him to make this torment last longer. Opening his eyes, he was met with the stark whiteness that was the hospital room he was currently in. He knew something was different then, because the cave-like chamber he'd been tortured in was not this bright. He turned his head to the door. When it opened, he noticed it was the Hokage. His gaze turned back to the ceiling. Sarutobi didn't notice that Naruto had awakened and sat next to his bed, saying, I am sorry I couldn't protect you. He was shocked when he heard an answer. Don't you mean that you're sorry you didn't finish the job? Turning, he locked his gaze with Naruto's dead blue eyes. It scared him, those eyes, where they used to have the energized, full of life joy. This boy in front of him was so cold, and his eyes were so dead. Part of him had expected to blonde to be damaged like this, and accuse him of wanting those things done to him because of Ibiki's report had stated they had hinged into his likeness, but still. Naruto, that was not me. I would never hurt you like that, please believe me. I wouldn't hurt you. He cried desperately, a tear trailing down his face. Truthfully, he couldn't believe his Naruto would break, ever. Naruto had always taken his treatment in stride, never losing himself to the hate. But Naruto's eyes remained dead as he locked his gaze with him once more. Even if you never made the blows, you didn't stop them. Not just this time, before you knew about the other beatings, about everything, and you stood by. You never cared for me, Hokage-sama. His heart clenched. Hokage-sama echoing in his head. Where was his Aji-chan nickname from his fostered grandson? He was right though, he had stood by. Let these things happen, and this last one had killed Naruto. Inside he was dead. You probably even knew about the orphanage kicking me out too. You are the Hokage. His voice was as dead as his eyes. He didn't regret one words that left his mouth. Naruto couldn't care. He didn't have the ability to care anymore. No, the only thing left was what was sealed inside of him because she was in a way himself. That creepy empty smile graced his face once more as he got out of the hospital bed, even with his injuries causing him pain. The Hokage felt like he had been cut adrift when he saw that smile. He knew Naruto had been lost in that cave. He had lost his sanity through that torture. Did you know they forced me to swallow a pill that kept me awake through all of it? He said, looking at the holes in his arms and legs. The sodomy sucked in a breath. He was awake. They didn't even let him lose consciousness from the pain they were inflicting. He had been aware for 9 days as they tortured him, not letting him ignore the pain. Naruto just laid back down on the bed and remained silent. After that, he would leave when he was healed. No later. Until then he would just remain silent. Time skip. It had taken Naruto a week to recover fully, and he left the hospital right after that. No one had the nerve to stop him. They all had become quite scared of his dead eyes and empty smile. He hadn't said a word since he had spoken with the Hokage, no matter how anyone tried to coax him. He made his way to the training grounds undisturbed for the most part, and found himself immersed in the woods faster than he thought he would be. He hadn't talked because he didn't need to, as he only wanted to talk to his tenant. No one else mattered. So he sat down in the woods and tried to go back to that place in his mind, to that comforting darkness. When he opened his eyes, he was in front of the cage again, facing the nude fox. I wanted to talk to you, he stated. What about Kit? You going to kill those pathetic humans who tortured you? No, I want my revenge on all of them, Kyuubi-sama. I knew I liked you, kid. Come here. Naruto walked through the bars with no hesitation. The Kyuubi was pleased that he was so ready to come to her. Walking up to him, she slowly wrapped both her arms around his shoulders from behind and pulled him into an embrace. Her tails wrapped around his tiny frame and pulled him closer to her. Sitting down with him in her lap them was an easy task. Naruto sat there dead-eyed in her embrace, though faintly he felt comfort in this assurance that he was indeed not alone. Now Kit, It will not do to have such a weak pathetic container any longer, so I will train you like I was trained. You will become a demon for me, Kit. Had anyone seen the scene played out in front of them as the Kyuubi whispered into his ear all of the ideals demons held as she began to turn him into her Kit, they would have said he was being seduced by evil. For months she taught him in his mind, going through countless mental exercises. She held him close at times, almost like a mother tutoring her child, telling him how he was supposed to be from now on. He had even taken to calling her Okasan just as she had taken to calling him her Kit. She couldn't do much with him so young, so she settled with teaching him stealth, putting chakra weights on his arms and legs. Yes, she can do that by taking over his body for the limited time she was allowed, and drilling countless mental exercises with him. It was how they passed the next few months, Naruto not saying a word outside of his mind. His empty smile, his silence, and most importantly his dead eyes disturbed everyone who had known the kid before the incident. Sarutobi was at the end of his rope. He was thinking of having him committed into a mental hospital in hopes to salvage what was left of the boy's sanity. Meanwhile, Naruto had just discussed with the Kyuubi about killing as soon as possible. Problem was to do so he had to avoid getting caught. However, it had been easier than expected to just snap a man's neck one night when he had been trying to beat him. The months passed without incident and his 4th birthday was a few days away. Even with all the stealth he was trained in, he was nervous. All it took was a skilled ninja and he would get beat again this year. He decided it was best he hid in the woods somewhere before anything happened. However, luck was not with him this time. He was caught off guard as a group of Jounin and Chunin attacked him along with a mob of citizens. They had apparently gotten wind that there had been a few deaths recently that couldn't be explained, and it left Naruto as the scapegoat. It didn't matter, they beat him all the same, but it was different somehow. They wanted him dead more this time, needed his death even. They were so scared of the monster they had created. His dead eyes haunted them till they just wanted it gone to deny their wrongs. They were quicker than usual, hitting him until he was curled up in a ball on the ground. Before they could be stopped this time, they all grabbed anything sharp they could use, from pipes, to kuni to katanas. They impaled him from every side and angle, eager for his long-awaited death. Bump bump, his heart thumped in his ears as it slowed down. Bump bump bu, it stopped, and Naruto died in that moment. Q roared behind her cage as a last-ditch attempt at saving her baby. She poured everything she could into the seal to heal him, to bring him back from death. The seal cracked from the pressure. With Naruto's death it had been weakened and it couldn't take the power. However, Q was rewarded with a thump as his heart started again. He had been dead for no longer than a second, but that had devastated the seal. Naruto exploded with red chakra, melting anything that was close. There was a hiss as his wounds were healed and weapons were shot from his body. Scared that the demon was finally showing its true self, they ran, not wanting to die that day. When Naruto awoke to an unharmed body, he startled for a moment, wondering how he had survived that attack. Kit, I will not mince words. In the effort to save you, I have damaged the seal. We will die soon, no doubt, when it breaks, so I wish to be long gone when the time comes. It is time to leave this village, Kit. Even if we do, the Hokage will send Hunternians after us. We will be dragged back here anyway. True, so tell him why you wish to leave, and if that is not enough, promise to come back. We will anyway, because if we survive this, we will get our revenge on this cursed hellhole. Naruto did as he was told and went to the Hokage tower, eager to leave this place before he died. When he made it into the office, he noticed that the old fool was quite shocked he was there. He had not sought him out in months. Hope glimmered in his eyes as he looked at Naruto, hoping against hope that he was back. Hokage-sama, I am leaving this village. As quick as it was born, the hope died. Why? Not going to try to stop me? Can I? You are the Hokage. Why are you leaving, Naruto? I will not beat around the bush. I know about the seal, and it's breaking because these foolish villagers have finally taken it too far. I am leaving. Don't send your Hunternin after my body. I don't want it here. He turned his back then, ignoring his calls that he could help, saying over his shoulder, he said, I don't want it. If I survive, I may come back. He just ran after that, out of the village, past everything he could recognize as being a part of the village he had known. He ran for days, not stopping, drove with pure hatred, wanting of putting as much distance between him and the village that wanted to see his death. Eventually, when he couldn't run anymore, he made it to a low valley. He had no idea where he was, just that he was as far as he could go. It wasn't beautiful or ugly, just a valley surrounded by trees that encased it with darkness. This is the place where he chose to die, happy to depart this life in the dark alone. The pain came then. He didn't scream, though, used to more pain than most would think possible. He laid down then, turning his dead eyes to the night sky, watching the moon as he passed from this world. He just felt cold then, a deep freezing feeling from the core of his being. When he was aware of next was that everything was bright abyss of nothing, just a bright white emptiness. Before him stood a man. He seemed to belong here. He was tall, and was wearing black robes contrasting with the surrounding white naturally. He had short spiky black hair and deep red eyes that saw into your soul, judging you from what he saw there. Bowing, Naruto knew where he was and whom he bowed to, Shinigami-sama. The death god seemed quite taken aback by him, not used to souls accepting their fate, especially them being respectful to him. He was the one assigned to young souls who died before their time. This was a nice change. Naruto-san, you know who I am and why I am here. Come, it is time to go. Shinigami-sama, Gomen, I must wait for Kyuubi-sama. I wish to go to hell with her. Nothing could have shocked him more than that at that moment. A mortal choosing to go to hell with a demon. I am sorry, Naruto-san, Kyuubi isn't dead. She will not be for a long time. Then I will wait in this place for her. We agreed to greet hell together. No, you can't stay here, besides you're not going to hell. I refuse to go anywhere else. Maybe he would be as difficult as the others. Why would anyone want to go to hell? He obviously was insane. Why would anyone wish to go to hell? I have killed people, have I not? Yes, but they were righteous deaths, they were attacking you. I don't care, I want to go to hell with her. Why? She is my mother. What son would not wait for their mother? But she's not your real mother. Doesn't matter, she was the only one there for me, and I'll be the only one there as that can greet her when she dies, it's only fair. He chuckled then. He liked this kid even if he had a broken soul and heart, he wasn't without passion. A thought occurred to him then. It had been boring here without any wars, so why not stop the boredom with him? He would be sure to send him plenty of entertainment. He walked up to him and grabbed him by the throat. Kneeling, he brought his lips to his own, breathing some of his life I him. I've decided since I like you I'm going to send you back. He smiled evilly. I'll have to change that dead body though, and you're not human anymore. If you survive the pain I'll talk to you later. Kyuubi. She had wished for her freedom many times, but this was the first time she wished that she were imprisoned. She was clutching Naruto's bloody dead body to her, trying futilely to heal him. You couldn't heal the dead. The seal had broken, releasing her, causing her to be thrown out of his body, effectively killing the one being she wished wouldn't die. Something had changed within her. She had grown to care, to love as much a demon could for him. Tears, for the first time in her life, streamed down her face. Please, Kit, please just live. We were supposed to go to hell together. Come on, Kit, we'll get our revenge together. It was futile though, no matter how loud she screamed she couldn't wake his dead body. Holding the dead toddler to her breast, she made her way to shelter as the rain came down, a poetic irony. She decided against lighting a fire. She laid down, curling her body around the corpse in her arms. She refused stubbornly to admit her baby was indeed dead. Instead, she convinced herself that if she could get his cold body warm again, he would wake up. Wrapping her 9 tails round him, she nuzzled his neck, hoping to wake him, all this done in vain. Sleep claimed her. No matter hard she resisted, breaking free of the seal had cost her body a lot. She was shocked to wake hours later when the corpse she was clutching to herself started to heat up to an impossible height. She felt hope for the first time then. He was warm again, maybe he hadn't died. He screamed then when the pain of his soul going into a lifeless body started, then a second pain of the corpse changing into something living came. Q panicked then, not knowing what to do to help her baby with his pain rocking him in her arms, desperate to comfort him. Naruto screamed. The pain, it was worse than the torture he'd been through previously, because he felt like his very soul was aflame, burning. The flames consumed him, but he refused to break again, refused to give in to the pain like he had before, his iron will keeping what little sanity he had left. His bones broke under the pressure, veins popped, muscle torn, and then everything reformed, healing, changing into something similar but very different from his original form. Naruto knew he was dreaming, in this room full of his memories and old desires. He had never been allowed to be a child, as such he never acted or felt like one. From early on he had to fight to survive, whether it be enduring hours of running full out to escape a beating or thinking of a way out of a tight spot. He had once longed for a family, for love, for acceptance, the comforts of a home, but he had been forever denied. It was his primal driven need to live on that forced in him a change that most never have the misfortune of experiencing, giving him the mind of perhaps a 12-year-old, and a body more suited to fight than the chubbiness of youth. He had never been ordinary. A prodigy of sorts, he excelled in everything he did, making him probably genin level at the tender age of 3. No matter how smart, how strong he was, he had still wanted that love, that comfort of family before that incident. Some part of himself, even if it was a superficial mask, had had the innocence of a child, hoping that one day they'd see him, not anything else. When those men had tortured him, all the pain he'd been shoving aside and bottling up erupted to the surface. The emotional pain of being an outcast for the entirety of his short 3 years, then coupled with the physical pain of their torture, broke him of any innocence he'd had left. He had been so empty, then abandoned by everyone he thought had cared, because even if the real Hokage didn't make the blows, he had left him for 9 days to endure it. Then, when his mother had come, he knew she didn't really care for him at first. No, she had her own reasons for talking to him, but she was a reality that would never be allowed to abandon him because of the seal. Maybe it was that lingering yearning for family or their mutual loneliness, but they eventually became the family he always wanted. It was somewhat ironic that he gained what he most desired when he no longer pined for it. It was a weakness of sorts of have any remaining feeling, but they refused to leave him. Since the lingering humanity, a storm of emotions, refused to leave him be, he directed them at her, toward revenge and hate, consumed by a maelstrom of dark feelings. When she had first taken him in her arms, he felt his few lingering emotion, contented, happy in her embrace. He even rather liked her lessons on Demon Edict, the base sense of selfish desire that they were. Of all the things he knew he couldn't experience with his shattered humanity, if he could feel love, it would be for her, his mother. It was this train of thoughts that led him to the subject of who had sealed his great and powerful mother in the first place, and with it a great sense of rage came. He hated him the fourth with all he was worth, the cause of his suffering, that pathetic weak human who sealed the greatest of all beings into him. If given the chance, he'd do everything he could have to hurt him, to make him suffer, destroy his mind like his had been, leave him feeling this emptiness. However, he was dead, and there was not much he could do to a corpse. He felt his dreaming remising cut short when warmth and soothing words brought him to the real world. Baby changed so much was pretty much all he got with his groggy pain-filled mind. Who was talking to him? Who was holding him? Oh yes, mother, demon, evil, yes, he accepted this darkness. Kyuubi had been worried, though she loathed to admit that this slip of a kid had awakened in her a motherly demonic love that she, even in embarrassment, would never let go. She had failed, she realized that now, failed as a mother to teach her kid to be strong. That would not do. His new body was also more suited for her training than his old human one. She could tell he was a demon, but also a little of something else. He looked almost the same, whiskers more elegant, blonde hair more golden, darker, longer, pointed ears, claws instead of puny fingernails, elongated fangs that forced his mouth slightly open at all times, faintly pointed teeth. The most staggering difference she didn't see until he opened his eyes, one a deep, never-ending pool of the purest blue, the other a dazzling violet. Both had slit pupils that were outlined faintly in sliver. You're alive. She said, more a question than a statement, because now out of her crazed state logic kicked in. He shouldn't be alive or a demon. Akasan couldn't go to hell without, now could I? He said in his small childish voice. The death god was pleased with himself. After all, he had finally found a mortal he saw worthy of his favor. Every god or goddess had at least one they favored in the mortal realm. It was time he had his own. Hell, Zeus had Hercules. Lady in the Lake had Arthur. Moab had Merlin. The list goes on and on. It was time he had his own fun. Naruto was an exceptional soul, naturally strong and an heir of death that he loved. He was a death god after all. It was rather boring without any wars or mass slaughters. It was about time he saw his lovely little death dealer. He should have survived being revived, and he wanted to get him trained as soon as possible. A swirl of pure darkness appeared out of nowhere that would have startled the two demons in the cave if they hadn't been prepared for it. Before the death god who had given Naruto life, ironic much, stood before them in the same stark black clothing and piercing crimson eyes boring holes in them. Kyuubi bowed low. As humiliating it was she was under him, he was much more powerful, but she still wanted to know, what has happened to my kit Shinigami-sama? I have brought him back to you, you should be more grateful, he said in a stern tone. My apologies, my lord, she bit out. Naruto, you will come with me now. To do what I want of you, training will be necessary. No. No, what do you mean no? I have already told you I will not leave her, as she is not allowed to leave me. She will come then. Turning from them, he held out a hand, and in a slashing motion a rift in the fabric of the world seemed to open. What could best be described as a portal into pure darkness hovered before the two demons and satisfied death god. This is the void. Time moves differently here. Sometimes a second in the real world is a year within the void. Because there is no real time within the void, you do not age, just gain in strength and knowledge. You, Naruto, will spend the total of 1 month within this void training with myself and your self-appointed mother. If by then you haven't gone mad from the utter darkness of the void plane, you will have gained at least the power of 2 of your mortal Kages. Naruto followed him unflinching into the black nothingness of the void, Kyuubi following him. All one could see was the glowing of strange-colored eyes until the door to the void was shut. Shin, short for Shinigami, was greatly surprised by Naruto and glad he'd chosen to favor him. Naruto was at peace in the dark. Unlike most mortals who go insane in the darkness from fear, Naruto embraced the void, which was so much like the darkness of his mind. The demon and the god trained him mercilessly, never ending, never resting, never stopping. He learned everything they taught him tirelessly. He even improved on his own, inventing new, seemingly impossible moves, because without the restraint of a sane mind he went beyond anything his 2 teachers could have hoped. In all he spent 2 months within the void, but in their time he had spent uncountable years expanding his mind, pushing his body, never aging or growing, just pure learning. When Naruto stepped out of the void, he pasted out from exhaustion and hunger. Kyuubi let him sleep. He is strong, stronger than anticipated, but that only makes it better, thought the death god as he shimmered from existence, and decided to watch Naruto from afar for a while. Later, Kyuubi held Naruto as he slept within her arms, content to lie there, because even if mentally he was exceeding mature, he was physically still just a child. She was so proud of him, so strong, but still had so much room to grow, to become even more powerful. He was just beginning to grow, and it is going to be fascinating seeing him grow even stronger. Wake up, Kit, she said firmly. Naruto awoke slowly, slightly dreading what they must do to get the revenge that they both craved so much. Q smiled her familiar cruel smile. She too didn't like what she had to do, what he had to do, but it'd be worth it in the end. Nodding, she placed her hand on the useless seal, and slowly her body merged into it, much like before, only now they were in control. She could come out when she wanted. They had plenty of time to plan their revenge in the void, and had long since decided that simply destroying it in one blow was not good enough. No, the destruction of Konoha would be slow, and they never see it coming. First, it had been unwise of Naruto, they acknowledged, to be outright hostile to the village. It made them suspicious, aware that would not do. Second, they would have to return soon, within the next week or so, but they would need a cover story. The cover story actually solved the initial problem with Naruto showing his hatred earlier, also his superior intelligence and power could be covered well with it. Naruto would stumble back into Konoha seemingly starved, weak and a bit torn up. Then he would pass out and force what appeared to be a coma. When he woke up, he'd put his hated mask on again. The old man would see it as a miracle that his trauma had forced him to block his memories from the incident onwards. It would be all too easy then to play the fool for his prey, all the while he would train in secret and slowly building himself allies. Both Q and himself realized they couldn't bring the destruction of Konoha alone, they need help so he'd get it. The only minor problems were already taken care of. 1. Q was free so she'd have to go into the seal for appearances. 2. His appearance. And 3. His power level. The first was taken care of by training so they could merge seamlessly, appearing much like she was sealed within him again. The second and third had been taken care of by Shin. He had given him a black choker necklace, think Haku, that completely masked his power level and gave him the appearance he had before. He still had all his heightened senses and power, they were just disguised. It would be all too easy to fool them. The only hard part would be keeping his mask up and fooling them as long as he would need to, probably a few years. It didn't take long for her to be within the seal again, and a little black choker later he was ready. Konoha. It has been nearly 3 months since Naruto had left, and he still couldn't find a trace of him. Sarutobi was afraid. Had Naruto really died out there somewhere alone and unburied? Was the demon free? Should he be preparing for it? Did he do the right thing letting him leave? Would he ever get the bright-eyed Naruto back? He could only ask questions with no answers. Nothing seemed to make sense anymore. Hokage-sama. Hokage-sama. What is it, man? He asked the nondescribed ninja before him, panting heavily. Hokage-sama, Naruto Uzumaki has been spotted at the gates. His words barely registered before Sarutobi's shoe shined away to see for himself, not believing it but still hope burned within him. Sure enough, when he got there the small form of Naruto could be seen stumbling closer and closer to the gates. He ran to meet him. As soon as he saw Sarutobi, Naruto pasted out cold into his arms. After that, just as planned, he was taken to the hospital where it was announced he was in a coma, and they were unsure if he'd ever recover. Then as scheduled he awoke a week later and Sarutobi was there 10 minutes later. Naruto, what happened? Where have you been? Is the seal still working? Sarutobi let the questions come like water, not really paying any attention to Naruto's appearance. Ano sa Aji-san? What are you talking about? The third stopped talking. Aji-san. He finally paid attention to Naruto now. Naruto, the real Naruto, sat before him once again. Cute confused look with bright innocent eyes, his lopsided confused smile, idiotic words, it was all back. Aji-san? Why am I in a hospital? Did something happen? What a seal? Naruto asked, looking so bewildered and innocent. What do you remember, Naruto? His little tongue sticking out the side of his mouth with a look of concentration. I remember walking to the park, then something happened. What was it? I can't remember. I remember being nervous because my birthday is coming up. Then I was walking after something really scary happened, but what? Then I was at the gates. It's all jumbled up, Aji-san, I can't get it straight. He sheepishly rubbed the back of his head in confusion. Could he hope? Could he actually have had his one real wish granted? Did he not remember the incident? Naruto seemed back to normal, but it was troubling what had happened to him. Why could he not remember? It was all too good to be true, and yet he had to be sure. Naruto, I'm going to get a friend of mine, okay? Maybe he can help you remember. Aji, he said, smiling foolishly. It wasn't long before one of the Yamanaka SP clan came into the room. Naruto smirked inside. He was prepared for this clan, who were famous for their mind techniques. The blonde blue-eyed man sat before him smiling calmly. Okay buddy, don't move now. Hi, he said stupidly, keeping up his trusting act, smiling at the third. A few hand signs later the man collapsed and entered Naruto's mind. Sarutobi was so nervous, part of him hoped he found out if Naruto truly didn't remember, but part of him was dying to know what had happened to him. Naruto's mind. The Yamanaka saw nothing but a cold darkness surrounding him. It was so dark and cold here, never before had he entered a mind so dark. Hello, he spun around at the voice. Before his was Naruto, cute, small, glowing, the picture of innocence. So who are you, mister? Oh, I'm Aguri. Remember me? We just met. Oh no, I've never met you before. Aguri was slightly confused. He just met Naruto, he should recognize him. So, what are you doing in the cold place? Cold place? Yeah, it's always cold and dark in here, but it's okay if you're not alone. So who are you? Oh, I'm Naruto, and I take care of Naruto, and keep him from being so lonely. He whispered the last part like a secret. So, could you take me to see Naruto? Sure, he said excitedly, grabbing his hand and running off as if he could see clearly in this utter darkness. Eventually they came to a dimly lit corridor, and before a huge barred door was another Naruto. Aguri was getting more and more confused. This Naruto was chained to the door that was heavily boarded up with nails, chains, metal, and the list goes on. The chained Naruto looked up, and he looked dead-eyed and in pain, utterly devastated about what he had no idea. He spoke then, a chilly cold voice, you cannot go in there. It's chained up for a reason, there is a monster in there. Aguri was disturbed by his voice, and whom he thought was beyond the door. Ano sa. You know he is always like that. Won't let me go in there either. Because we don't wish to remember, was the other Naruto's reply to the unasked question. He'd had enough. He had a pretty good idea what was going on through all this confusion. He left Naruto's mind and Naruto slumped down unconscious. So what is going on, Aguri? Sarutobi couldn't take it anymore. Whatever has happened to him has caused a lot of mental damage. It would seem that everything that had to do with whatever happened has been completely suppressed. He has created an almost split personality to guard himself from ever remembering. I think that if he ever did, it would be very damaging on his fragile mental stability. Inside, Naruto was sharing a creepy grin with Q about how well everything was going. Everything was playing into their own hands. On the outside, he was very much aware that the third was discussing on his mental condition when everything in his mind happened exactly how he wanted. Eventually, Sarutobi accepted what he thought was a miracle that brought back the carefree, idiotic Naruto back, happy that he once more was Aji-san. In some ways, he accepted that the less he actually knew, the better he felt. If he didn't know how hard Naruto's life was, he accepted his smile all the more. Everyone seemed to follow this, his smile and foolish nature blinding him or her to his hardships, that even they caused. The less they knew, the better they felt. Through the years, Naruto played his part well. No one ever suspected that the airhead idiot they despised was a powerful beast in waiting. Naruto trained continuously in secret with the Kyuubi. Everything was fine-tuned and honed to deadly accuracy. He entered the academy keeping to the bottom of the class because no one would fault a stupid demon, but a smart, powerful one would be feared. Slowly he gained in strength to that of a 3-tailed demon by the time he was 6. By 9 he had reached 8, and by 11 he had reached 9 tails, equaling to his mother in strength. Kyuubi during this time was restless but exceedingly proud. Her kit was strong. She had chosen well in showing affection early on so that he would keep her by his side while he gained in even more power. Naruto never felt anything besides what a Kuffen devoted son would feel for a mother. The Kyuubi was never outright affectionate but could be at times. She still was his only true friend and confidant, never revealing more than his mask to the outside world. By the time graduation came around near his 12th birthday, he was just as restless to rid himself of his mask as his mother, but he bid his time. To relieve some of his stress, he'd taken to silent killing, becoming an assassin's worst fear, someone whose presence could be completely suppressed, that before you even knew someone was behind you, you were dead. He had quite liked sneaking out of Konoha to assassinate assassins, quickly becoming known to them only as Death's apprentice because he was like the death god himself, dealing out death like a passing wave. No one ever knew or suspected it was him, poor innocent Naruto, that was killing them from the shadows. Graduation. Naruto sat on the swing staring somewhat broodingly at this year's genin graduates. It was sickening, really, these pathetic human families and their blatant open affections for their young. This was all foolishness, really. How can such weakness be considered ready to face the shinobi world with all its ruthless killers? To graduate in Konoha, all one is to perform a simple shadow, replacement, and henge to pass, all things that he had mastered at 3 years old. They were all so weak. Sure, they had to pass the final test given by the Jounin instructor, but it was still ridiculous how easy it was to graduate. Even their Hokage was old, crippled, and had long since passed his usefulness as Hokage. Konoha was weakening, its students sinking in power level, and its desire to fight slowly cowing to the desire to protect. The desire to protect was a powerful tool, he admitted, but it clouded your judgment. That was very crippling to a cool-headed killer such as himself. The fact of the matter was, he should have graduated last year when he had seen the skill that year, but he had held back, which has led to his utter refusal to be saddled with this weak lot. He also was curious about what his other sensei Mizuki was planning. He had been eyeing the failures this test with a predatory gleam in his eyes only he seemed to catch. Sure enough, he felt Mizuki approach him from behind and listen with an internal sneer to him explain about the forbidden scroll. Did he really think he was an absolute idiot? Apparently, he already saw through this entire foolishness but would go along with it anyway. It fit into his plans. As Naruto slipped from his apartment where he had copied the forbidden scroll, he stealthily made his way to the meeting spot Mizuki had designated. To him it would be easy this way. Mizuki would be blamed for everything because he, Naruto, was too slow to know any better. Yes, a creepy empty smile graced his lips. Why would a slow, overly happy child with dreams of becoming want to steal the scroll but to pass the exams? Foolishness really, but they actually believed he wanted to be Hokage, but what he really meant when he said it was he wanted to be its downfall. So I'm going to be Hokage, believe it. Translated to you're all going to die and I'm going to enjoy it. It would be so satisfying to crush Konoha with his own hands. He had suffered much at their filthy human hands. As disgusting as it was growing up, he had to let them beat him, give him rotten food, endure their glares and blame. When he finally crushed them, he was going to enjoy seeing their betrayed faces. Sitting and forcing himself into a state as if had been practicing for hours non-stop, he awaited Iruka and then Mizuki, who he felt approaching. Iruka came first as expected. Placing his patented lopsided grin, he shouted, "Iruka-sensei. Found me already, eh? I mastered one, sensei. I can pass now, right?" Right. Confusion graced Iruka's face, then Naruto could almost feel his stomach drop. Who told you this, Naruto? Mizuki-sensei, of course. Naruto watched him put 2 and 2 together as Mizuki's attack approached, then Iruka pushed him out of the way. Oh, how touching. Feeling guilty, Naruto thought in disdain. I'm surprised you found this place, Iruka. I see, so that's how it is. Iruka said, flinching in pain at the kunai that was embedded into his leg. Naruto, hand over the scroll. Ano-sa, what's going on here? Naruto, don't give him the scroll no matter what. That's a dangerous scroll with forbidden techniques. Mizuki used you so he can get a hold of it. Iruka yelled in anger as he pulled the weapon from his leg. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Naruto thought with a glare on the inside and innocent confusion on the outside. Naruto, you know Iruka is afraid of you possessing that. What? Naruto grunted, mouth open in shock, as he should be, he thought inside. What are you saying, Mizuki? Don't believe him, Naruto. Mizuki started to laugh stupidly at this. Naruto was really getting bored with this drama. It wasn't as nearly exciting as he thought it was going to be. There was hardly any blood at all. I'll tell you the truth. Iruka started to panic at that. Idiot. Don't. A rule was created after the incident 12 years ago. A rule? Naruto smiled his creepy smile inside. Finally something else he could use from this night to his advantage in the coming future. It was a rule only you, Naruto, could not find out about. Only me. What's that rule? Yes, play into my hands my pawns. Tell me, Mizuki, seal your death tonight by my hand or the execution block. Stop, Mizuki. The third's law. Iruka was really panicking now, screaming with his eyes closed at him. It's the rule not to say that Naruto is the Kyuubi, a demon and monster. In other words, you're the demon who destroyed the village and killed Iruka's parents. Well, it's finally gotten somewhat exciting. These humans sure beat around the bush. Took them 12 years to say all that. Pathetic. Stop. You've been deceived by the village people all this time. Deceived? A 3-year-old could figure that out. Idiotic humans think they could deceive me? Didn't you think it was weird that everyone hated you so much? No one's ever going to recognize you. Even Iruka hates you. Naruto put on his display. Oh, a weak idiot. Even the fake tears he had mastered always came in hand at times like this. It would be over soon anyway. He was starting to itch to kill something, to have blood pooling in his claws as they screamed for mercy. Oh, how he wanted that so much. Oh well, he'd have to settle on accidentally killing Mizuki. He was a weakling anyway. When Mizuki threw his weapon, he was wholly ready to unintentionally kick it back, killing him, but Iruka got in the way like the nuisance he was and took the blow, tears running down his face. Naruto was not really surprised as Iruka spouted some nonsense about how he was acting like a clown too to gain attention. He started to tune it out halfway through. It didn't matter, he acted this way to bide his time to bring their doom. The rest of the night was uneventful. Naruto found it pathetically easy to take down Mizuki even with his idiot's mask on. However, unfortunately Iruka made him a genin. On the plus side, he did manage to give Mizuki a couple fatal wounds that were disguised as an accident so as not to gain too much attention. In the forest surrounding Konoha, Naruto silently ran to what he had deemed the safe place. It was in actuality just a small clearing surrounded on all sides by thick thorn bushes. It was here he snuck every so often so that Q could be released from her prison, and they would train then at the dead of night so as not to be discovered. However, tonight neither Naruto nor the Kyuubi felt it was the time for the torturous demonic training. No, not tonight. Both were slightly upset that as of earlier Naruto was an official genin. It would slow the process a little because it would be even more difficult to keep undetected if the Jounin sensei paid too much attention. So Naruto asked for something of her that he hadn't since he was younger. Sing it for me. She smiled an evil empty smile as she sat down and pulled Naruto into her embrace. Hush, little demon, don't you cry. No one cares how you feel inside. He remembered when she sang this to him the third time he saw her after a particularly brutal beating. But if you make them scream in pain, the tears you cried won't be in vain. This song soothed the little humanity that Naruto had left, and the part of the Kyuubi too had a little humanity as a result of her exposure to the seal. Many will try to hold you close, because it's you they will fear the most. Don't you let their lies deceive, because it's only revenge you'll need. They beat you till you broke inside. Even though in human years he was reaching maturity in a demonic sense, he was still a child even with the 9 tails of power. He would age as a human would until he reached physical maturity around 25. But even then he wouldn't reach sexual potency until he was a couple 100 years old. And that's how you came to reside, in a darkness cold and deep. It's your secrets I will keep. They see nothing but your mask. This will help you with your task. In effect, there were times like these where he acted very much like the demon child he was with his mother. Had they been in demonic society, it wouldn't be considered strange that as a child Naruto probably would leave the comforts of his mother's side for about 100 years. All you have to do is play your part, and you will win many hearts. The trust they place in you will fail, and with a smile you'll drag them to hell, because in the end there is only power. Before you they will cower. So hush, little demon, don't you cry, because in the end they all will die. They chuckled lightly at their mockery of the foolish human lullaby that the Kyuubi had parroted in her song. For beings like Naruto and Q, the darkness was their home. They resided in evil, and evil resided in them. To them everything looked different in the dark. The light was too harsh. But in the pitch black of night everything was bathed in a beautiful darkness that engulfed their world. Academy. The day he had dreaded had come. For now on it would be even harder for him to keep from being detected as the threat he was, but he had a plan. No doubt later today the Hokage would call him to his office to discuss mother. He would use this to his advantage so that all suspicions would be nullified for a while longer. He'd have to show how mentally unstable he was, just exaggerated enough that if he did have a moment where he was not quite the idiot, his sensei would think nothing of it. He sighed under his breath. His plan was all going so slow sometimes he almost gave in to the urge to just wipe them all out at once, but no, he wanted to see them broken first. It would be a long wait for his Jounin instructor Hatake Kakashi. He was rather infamous for how tardy he was when it came to arriving on time. His teammates were ridiculously weak, but he'd deal they would only have D-rank mission for a while anyway. He wondered if anyone would fault him if the pink-haired banshee on his team died accidentally. The other one of the two surviving Uchihas was rather weak compared to his brother's monstrous power. For a human, that is. Sasuke seemed bent on killing his brother, rather stupid in his opinion because he was obviously far weaker, and should have been dead by now. Naruto actually rather liked the older Uchiha. He had weakened Konoha by killing his clan and he was rather merciless. He liked that. Come to think of it, he should look into contacting him to help with Konohana's downfall. No matter, he had been rather quiet all this time and his teammates seemed to have finally noticed. Hey Baka, what with you? Sasuke asked, rather annoyed at Naruto's silence. Nothing, Sasuke team, just plotting my latest prank I'm going to pull on this stupid late sensei. He screeched annoyingly to satisfy their curiosity. Naruto then proceeded to set up a lame eraser in the open door trick and was silently seething about how idiotic he had to act. Then about 10 minutes later Kakashi stepped into the trap. My first impression of you is I hate you. Meet me on the roof in 10 minutes. Once on the roof the three sat down waiting for something, just staring at each other. Naruto thought he would be able to keep up his mask for very much longer. It was too tiring pretending to be something he was not. Though he had to admit with a little pride that he had mastered lying so well even his eyes lied. Introduce yourselves. You know, name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, goals. Kakashi droned, bored. I don't understand, sensei, why don't you start? My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I have likes and dislikes, my hobbies, and I have goals. Sasuke and Sakura were pissed that he only basically told them his name. Naruto was more interested in thinking about killing someone after this in secret to really care about what was going on around him. He deemed listening to his team's introduction not worth his time. He already knew what they would say. Sakura would squeal like a pig over Sasuke, and Sasuke would brood about killing his much more worthy brother. Okay Blondie, your turn. Uzumaki Naruto. That was all. He said to be a smart ass because if Kakashi only told him a name then he would return the favor. Naruto already didn't like Kakashi. He could already tell from his stance and attitude that he would more than likely favor the Uchiha in this team. He stared at the sky looking zoned out until the three of them had left. Sighing, he made his way to the Hokage tower. He had to put on a great show for the third. Sarutobi POV. He felt so old after Iruka had made his report on what was dubbed the Forbidden Scroll incident. Apparently Mizuki had told Naruto about the Kyuubi. How would he deal with rediscovering it? Just when he was going to summon Naruto to his office, Naruto showed up on his own through the window. When Naruto faced him, he felt his stomach drop as he stared into the dead eyes he hadn't seen since before Naruto had come out of his coma. His voice sounded so cold that when he did speak he was hard-pressed not to shiver as fear griped his heart. Hokage-sama, I realized you would summon Naruto soon, so I had to prevent that. What are you talking about, Naruto? You're here. No, Hokage-sama, Naruto is within the darkness right now. I am hard-pressed keeping his memories about last night clean. We do not wish to remember, so I lock them away. Do not dabble in things you have best leave alone, or else I will take the revenge I so long to on this village. Naruto let a dark chuckle escape as he saw the third's face. It was priceless. When Naruto left sure that the third would believe that he had a spilt personality that kept him the happy idiot he was, it was funny how easy humans were to manipulate. Sarutobi was frightened of what this could mean. Naruto was not only suppressing the monster Kyuubi but also the one the village created in him. He had felt the tiniest killing intent from him when he spoke with those dead eyes of his. He was frightened because if Naruto did not have control over his other self, it would become very dangerous soon. X time skip X. D-rank missions were really beginning to get Naruto frustrated even with his infinite patience. It was starting to wear on him. He had been right about Kakashi also. During the whole bell testing he had decided to test himself while acting the fool like he was supposed to in all he had taken, and put the bells back 10 times without anyone noticing. After they had passed the obvious teamwork test, the weeks that followed had been nothing but D-rank missions, and it was starting to get to him. It was when they were returning that stupid cat again when he couldn't take it anymore, so Naruto did what he knew would probably shake up everyone in the mission assigning room. He let his mask fall and let his true dead eyes appear before Sarutobi once again. Hokage-sama, assign me a better mission now or deal with the consequences, came his cold voice. Everyone in the room stopped and stared. Sarutobi paled, the eyes were back. Kakashi was disturbed by the subtle ki coming from Naruto and finally paid attention to his student. Iruka across from the Hokage felt like his heart stopped beating. He remembered how when he was younger he had those eyes for a time, and had stopped talking. He hoped Naruto was not returning to that state. Sasuke was scuffing because he thought that Naruto was trying to act cool. Then he started to think of ways to kill his brother, like always coming up with nothing. Sakura was scared but then got over Naruto's attitude as him trying to get her attention. Okay Naruto, we have a C-ranked mission that your team can accomplish. The third said quickly, not want to provoke him, wanting his Naruto back. Then that creepy empty smile came that made Iruka and Sarutobi shiver before the light came back to his eyes and his smile turned silly. Naaji-san, why you staring at me like that? Naruto asked loudly. A breath was released in the room. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, get ready to leave the village for a few weeks. Pack and meet me at the gates in 2 hours. Once they left, Kakashi turned to the Hokage and asked, what was that? Naruto POV. He knew what they were talking about, how he was declining in mental stability. His plan did have some risks but many benefits. Most depended on if the third kept the council in the dark, but that's what he spent 7 years building. His love for Sarutobi, loved his mask. It took him all of 10 minutes to pack and then he was at the gates a full hour and 50 minutes ahead of the time limit. Naruto would use this extra time. First he made a 12 Kage Bunshin and sent them ahead of them in groups of 3. Then he found a place out of the way where he could see his team, but they couldn't see him. He wanted to talk to his mother. Naruto sat in the clearing that wasn't too far from the gates of Konoha, patiently waiting for his mother to separate from him. He wanted to talk to her face to face. Without his infamous orange jacket and blue shirt, you could see his well-defined chest/abs. Slowly a hand emerged from his stomach, then another, a head of unruly red hair next, and quickly she emerged from Naruto. Q turned to her. Kit, what is the matter, Kit? Why do you wish to speak so early? Naruto stared at her with cold, emotionless eyes. I grow tired of this farce, Okasama. I will drop this pitiful mask. This mission, they will be more suspicious, but I cannot stand to be near such filth much longer. This mask is too infuriating to keep up much longer. I'll just play it off as a mental breakdown or something. Hi, I was growing tired of this also. Perhaps we should just flatten this village together? No, I have a better idea, but it still needs work. I'll explain later. You still haven't explained why you brought me out here? Truthfully, you're the only one who walks beside me in our path to hell. I no longer wish for my body to be your prison. You shall change into your true form and we'll pass you off as an animal companion. What about the chakra issue? Just leave a handful of chakra in the place where the seal is supposed to be. Q nodded her assent and shifted forms into a fox just bigger than a small dog, think a little bigger than Akamaru. She gathered her tails and morphed them into one, then changed her fur to shimmering silver. Q gazed at her son's cold face, the face of a regretless killer, and smiled. She had made him her Kit in every way she could. She loved his face, so dead of emotion as a strong demon should. He had emotion like her, just buried beneath the surface and guarded fiercely, given only to her. Naruto looked at his hated orange jumpsuit, loud and annoying like his mask. He discarded it somewhat happily. He took a sealing scroll from his pack and took out a standard black shinobi outfit. It was nothing special, but he just wanted something other than orange. The loose black pants hung like his previous orange ones, but the color change made it look much better. He had a sleeveless black muscle shirt that went well with his ever-present black chakra. He had white wrapping that covered both arms, thickly but up higher, and black sandals to complete the look. You know, if worse comes to worse, we just flatten Konoha and get the hell out of there before someone tries to seal us into a baby or something, Naruto said, chuckling darkly to himself. Q snickering evilly beside him. He bent down so she could use his position to slink up his arm, draping herself across his shoulders easily. Naruto let his creepily empty smile to grace his face once more, relishing his freedom that he would gain in this mission. Q nuzzled his cheek and whispered into his ear, you know you only need 2 more kills before I'll adopt you officially? You currently have 9,998 kills and you need 10,000, so go kill someone. His smile widened, looking exactly like her evil foxy grin that made her almost purr. Think anime infamous behind cage smile. He was coming along nicely, resting his back against a tree, Naruto waiting for his teammates. He had lost most things a long time ago, but sometimes he wondered if just one person had offered to help him, had seen his pain, then maybe he would have spared this village. But no one saw him, at least not the real him. They were content to know nothing. Everyone was fine, ignoring his pain and the pain they brought to him. Naruto looked to the gates of the village he had come to hate so deeply. They were all so blind, so willing to walk the path to death. No matter he'd do what he was made to, Naruto would bring hell to their doorstep and watch them burn. Laughing hollowly, he looked to see his teammates walking towards him. He could smell how unnerved they were. That was fine by him. It didn't matter if they ignored him anymore. X time skip X. They were walking silently. It was disturbing to the other members of his team that he had changed so much in a few hours. Well, that's what they think. Naruto smirked slightly when he spotted a puddle ahead. Out of the corner of his eye he saw Kakashi signaling Sasuke. Figures he had pegged him to be into favoritism. Naruto's creepy empty smile was troubling Kakashi. What had happened to the orange-wearing loudmouthed idiot that was his third student? When he saw his smile widen at the sight of the puddle ahead, he shifted uncomfortably. Not that it mattered that Naruto saw through it on his own. Kakashi had already warned Sasuke. The fox on Naruto's shoulders made Kakashi feel at unease even when he was reading his favorite book. Where had it come from anyway? Naruto had not said a word since the Hokage Tower. It was freaking him out, the silence. Naruto saw his opportunity. In a flash he embedded 2 kunai in the puddle ahead. What the hell, Naruto? Don't do that. It startled me. Idiot. It's just a puddle. Sakura screamed but shut up when Naruto just turned to stare at her with his freaky smile. A few seconds later the puddle turned into 2 missing nin with kunai embedded in their foreheads. Okasama, I have killed the last 2 you required. Q purred at the sight of 2 merciless kills ahead of her. You've done well, Kit. You'll get your reward later when their eyes are closed, and the darkness gives us its embrace. Naruto nodded, liking he would finally be adopted in the hour he liked that most, in the dead of night. After the failed ambush by missing nin, Kakashi had confronted Tazuna, but Naruto wasn't really paying attention to the whole sob story pity me thing. He just kept walking. Besides, if someone wanted him, Tazuna, dead, Naruto anticipated that more, stronger opponents would come and he could kill them brutally this time. He wanted blood between his fingers, hear screams in his ears. He wanted to kill, and Q could feel his well-concealed bloodlust. She approved. Eventually, after a long walk, riverboat ride and another walk, a mist rolled and Naruto turned cold eyes to the mist. A white rabbit scurried in the bushes and then he heard it, the whoosh of a weapon flying through the air. Get down! Kakashi screamed. Naruto scuffed, and just sidestepped the huge sword that landed with a crunch in the trunk of a tree. A shinobi stood on the sword. He was shirtless and had bandages covering half his face. However, unlike most humans, he had a twisted aura that Naruto liked. Momochi Zabuza, one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Known as the Demon of the Mist after killing hundreds of kids mercilessly in the exams when he wasn't even qualified to take to become a ninja of the mist. Kakashi said, recognizing the shinobi from the bingo book. Naruto scoffed, this mortal doesn't deserve the title of demon, though he has a nice aura, right Okasama? Why don't you show this demon what it means to be a murderer? No, I'll see what Kakashi does. Besides, if I get the chance I might be able to kill the banshee off while no one's looking. Good point. They stood off to the side, Tazuna stepping behind him, Sasuke taking his side, and Sakura taking up the rear. Naruto scoffed. Did they think he'd help them? That's when the thick mist rolled in, blinding them, well except Naruto, and Zabuza's voice came out of the gloom releasing his killing intent. Naruto thought this was all idiotic. The point of silent killing is the silence. Zabuza was spouting some nonsense about the killing points on the body. Whatever, he'd watch for now, maybe something of value would happen. Or he could use this chance to wipe out his team, make it look like they were killed by Zabuza. He watched and waited. Naruto still had his empty smile stretched across his face. He was rather bored. That's when he noticed Sasuke trembling, and he could tell he was thinking about killing himself to release himself from the Ki. Naruto started to chuckle then. Poor little Uchiha can't handle such small Ki, maybe we should kill him, put him out of his misery? Aoka-san? She smiled. Yes, wouldn't want him to feel too distressed now, would we? He asked the precious last Uchiha. Just when he was going to strike him down, Kakashi shouted something stupid about protecting them. Naruto knew Kakashi wouldn't protect him. Not that he needed it. The fight was too boring and Naruto lost interest fast. Instead he decided to stare at the hidden hunter-nin perched in a tree watching the battle. Said hunter-nin would shift uncomfortably every now and then, feeling his stare. Naruto couldn't take much more waiting. He wanted blood in his hands. He stroked Kyuu's fur in his agitation. Sometimes he treated her more like a pet than a mother. Then again, it wasn't like he could feel anyways. Then, as if the world felt his growing frustration, Kakashi got himself caught in a jutsu. Naruto's eyes widened slightly with suppressed bloodlust, smile widening before Kakashi had time to shout for them to flee. Naruto was already in Zabuza's face. Grinning evilly, Naruto punched him hard in the gut, making him fly across the water and cough up blood. His smile twisted in satisfaction at the sight of the crimson liquid. Kakashi stumbled, trying to regain his breath from the water and the shock of seeing Naruto standing on water like it was nothing. Zabuza smirked. Now what do we have here? Some cocky genin trying to save his precious sensei. Cocking his head to the side, Naruto stared emotionlessly with a smile at Zabuza, and then Naruto was in front of him again, holding him by his throat. The rest of Team 7 and Tazuna were more than a little disturbed by this new, stronger, freakier Naruto, who seemed to be toying with a jounin. Using his other hand, Naruto ran his claws across Zabuza's bare chest, tearing flesh and coating his hand with blood. Naruto looked at his claws curiously, and brought his hand to his mouth, licking off the blood. It tasted like salt and darkness. He liked the taste, his smile never faltering as Zabuza looked too shocked to react. Then he spoke for the first time since the Hokage Tower. I like your blood. I don't think I'll kill you, demon. He just dropped him then, and walked away as if nothing happened, petting the fox blade across his shoulders. Zabuza was disturbed, which was saying something. That kid, his aura was calm the entire time, like he was having a picnic, not thinking about killing someone. That's when he decided it would be wise to retreat for now so that he could regroup and attack them after figuring out whom the hell that kid was. Kakashi was too tired and weary of Naruto to stop Zabuza from retreating, so he just limped after Naruto, who was walking on the water calmly as if it was solid ground. The short walk to Tazuna's house held a somber air. Team 7 and their client were all silent, trying to discreetly watch Naruto and failing miserably. Naruto seemed oblivious to their stares, just stroking the fox on his shoulders with that creepy empty smile, not saying a word since the fight. Kakashi was exhausted from chakra depletion but still conscious. He was seriously becoming even more disturbed by Naruto's behavior. First he shows up with an entirely different wardrobe from his normal kill me orange. Then he doesn't talk one word the entire journey, just that freaky smile, and he smacked around a jounin rank missing nin like it was nothing. All he kept thinking was, what the hell is this kid looking at him, petting that unnatural silver fox draped around his shoulders. Naruto on his end was content a few more hours and it would be dark again. His mother laid on his shoulders, purring slightly. Soon everything he needed would come to be. Kyuu would adopt him. Konoha would fall to his feet, and Naruto would finally be able to bath in the blood of his hated. He couldn't wait much longer to bring hell to Konoha. The leaf will fall, he would make sure of it. Naruto let his grotesque creepy smile widen, effectively causing the ones around him to cautiously step back. Tazuna's house was of no interest to Naruto, so as soon as they reached it he left, walking as quiet as ever to the woods surrounding the area. Kakashi said nothing as he watched Naruto go into the forest, silent as a ghost. He would admit, even if it was just to himself, that this new darker Naruto frightened him to no end. Naruto found a clearing enclosed thickly with trees that blocked out the dying sun, leaving the space enshrouded in darkness. He would relish the night in this place. If he was anything, he was patient. Soon enough the sun went down, the full moon rose into the sky, even its light not reaching the deafening blackness of his clearing. They needed no words, Naruto knew what to do. Kyuu jumped from his shoulders and transformed, staring into his eyes. Slowly she raised her wrist to her mouth. She bit down hard, sucking as if to draw out a poison invading her system. In a sense it was a poison, it was venom, and evil, and it was her sins. Withdrawing her mouth from her wrist, a thick black inky substance oozed from two small puncture holes pooling into the space between them. It started out small but eventually it grew, and then mutated, taking on a thick liquid shadow of the Kyuubi herself. It stood before Naruto, looking down at his smaller adolescent form. Naruto smiled, and for a moment one of his eyes flashed violet. Opening his mouth, the black ooze streamed into his mouth. The Kyuubi's sins entered him. Naruto could feel the heat of them in his very blood. He watched the blackness slither through his veins, pulsating. He loved the pain it brought. His mother stood before him in her dark beauty. This is what Naruto had been waiting for. This was true evil he had been waiting for. It was a purging fire, stripping him of any conscience that may had whispered feebly that what he was doing wrong. The whites of his eyes blacked out, and soon his eyes were solid black pits that spoke of hell. As fast as the blackness had taken over him, it faded away. There was no pain. He was a demon. Had he been human, the darkness that had just invaded him probably would have killed him. Q watched, waiting for the mark of the heir to appear on her son. Every royal demon clan of the highest class had marks that distinguished them as such. Her line had a black crescent moon. Where your mark made itself known often rated how powerful one could become. A mark on the forehead meant almost no limitations. Then below that was the back of the neck like her, which just meant immensely powerful. It had been millennia since the last demon had his mark placed proudly at the center of his forehead. Q sucked in a breath when a dark crescent moon made itself known on Naruto's forehead. She had suspected, hoped even to see his mark there, but it was a different matter entirely when it actually appears there. Her son, her kid, would become one of the most feared demons since the great Akihiro before him. Naruto felt like he had finally achieved one of his most harbored desires. This bond between them was deeper than the seal had been. This would ensure that Q would never be allowed to abandon him like all the others. However, he still felt trapped, confined. He scratched at the ever-constant black chakra. He couldn't take it off no matter how much he wanted to. The immense power it hid was all that kept the village from discovering how much of a threat he really had become. Oh, how he hated the filthy insects he was forced to consort with daily. They were beneath him. Soon he would make sure they acted as such. They would bow on broken knees before he burned their world with the fires of the hell he would bring to them. Q morphed back to her silver smaller fox form and slinked up to his shoulders, taking her place there. Then the darkness seemed to tingle and become alive around them, and Naruto's smile twisted cruelly. It had been a long time since he had felt that particular presence. Then, as expected, the death god himself stood before them in all his glory. Shinigami-sama, to what do I owe the pleasure of your company? You are my favorite little death dealer, so I thought I'd give you a gift of sorts. Gift? Yes, I know how much it pains you to not have your father on this plane of existence with you, so I thought I'd let you know that I'm sending his soul back to his body. Shinigami said in mocking tones and another cruel smile. The only sign of surprise was his slight widening of his eyes. Oh, I thought he was long past dead, that even your great power couldn't bring his corpse back to life. That would be true if he was really dead. His body has been a coma since the sealing. A body can live after its soul has left, it just can't be active. Naruto's smile widened and an insane evil laugh filled the air as he realized that the person he hated more than anything would really end up watching him destroy the village he had sacrificed him for. Q soon joined in with her barked laughter, and Shin followed after with his dark chuckle as he watched his favorite delighted in his gift. As the dark laughter was swallowed by the night, back in Konoha, a prone figure lying in an underground chamber twitched. A figure. Shadowed people exclaimed when the figure's hands started to move. The beeping of many different monitors faded as shouts of "Wake the Sandame! He's waking up!" The blond man lying in the bed had various tubes and wires hooked up all along his body. Arashi's first thought as his soul re-entered his body was that he couldn't feel his son in his arms. When he blurrily opened his eyes, his first sight was his predecessor leaning over him. He didn't understand. He should be dead, or at least something like that. Where was his son? Was the monster imprisoned within him like he had hoped? Faintly he was aware that Sarutobi was saying something, but all his thoughts were on his absent son. Where's Naruto? He croaked through parched chapped lips before all went dark as he passed out. The third sat next to the young man that had been his successor, tears silently streaming down his face. Most of the nurses and doctors in the room equated this to joy that their golden one had returned. What they didn't know was that the tears he shed were of shame, not joy. How was he going to tell the man that saved all their lives that his son has been beaten, persecuted, and broken? How was he going to face him when he discovered what they have done to his only son, a hero? Little did he know the object of his sorrow and shame was in the wilds of the mist country, laughing at his fortune. He would be able to destroy his useless father soon. The source of all his pain and hate would die slowly by his hand. Naruto walked slowly, exploring the night life of the forest, contemplating the many ways he could kill his father. It was dark and his mother was sleeping soundly on his shoulders. It was rare when a demon had to sleep. He himself hadn't slept in 7 years. But the naming of an heir took a lot out of her. Thinking about his ascension, he fingered his black chakra. He supposed it was lucky Shinigami had paid them a visit to tweak the charm to cover his new mark. He turned his gaze to the night. He enjoyed these nights the most when the moon full cast its gentle glow, illuminating the world, creating long shadows and letting darkness reign. His thoughts turned inward. The village that was his home, it was funny really, they had hated him because he had held within him a monster. Blinded by their hate, they believed him to be a monster when he would have given everything in the world to have just what most took for granted. Vaguely, he wondered what would have happened had things been different, had he been spirited away from the village by some savior, or if Sarutobi had not told the entire village he had been sacrificed for them. Not that any of that mattered now anyways. He reviled in being a demon, celebrated it. How could doing what was his nature evil? No one blames the snake for killing the rabbit to survive. Why should their kind be looked down upon because their prey were humans? His kind were either in hiding, in another world, or imprisoned within the frail human bodies of their vessels. It was not right. He would bring back order to this world. The humans will submit, or die. Demons would once again reign over their weak human counterparts. However, this would all come later. For now, he needed to build up his strength and get his revenge on the ones that have wronged him. World conquest would come later, when his power was unstoppable, and when he figured out how to avoid being sealed into anything, and more allies had been made. Now to focus on the problem at hand, Gato, that foolish human, had pitted Zabuza against him. That human stood in the way of any alliance he might have with those two. Naruto smirked. He hated anything that got in the way of his revenge, and he would destroy this little annoyance fast enough. It didn't take him long to find Gato's base of operations. The man had long since gotten arrogant enough to think he was untouchable, resulting in him seeing no sense in hiding. It was child's play, slipping into the shadows, killing any who got in his path. Eventually it led him here in front of Gato's door, wondering what was the best way to kill him. Naruto opened the door silently. The lump of flesh they deemed to call Gato was sprawled naked on a tasteless bed. Two chained naked girls sat on the opposite wall. It was clear what had happened. His obnoxious snoring filled the room as he wheezed air from his fat face. The sight was disgusting, and Naruto hated ugly things. His mother stirred on his shoulders, just waking up from her impromptu nap. She met the scene before her with a sneer, flicked her tail, and after saying be sure to take your time killing that one, went straight back to sleep. Naruto smiled his creepy hollow smile. The screams that followed barely sounded human, and after an hour the screams died away, leaving only the carcass of what once looked like a man behind. Naruto turned to leave, but as he did he caught sight of the two girls. He had completely forgotten they were even there. He studied them, wondering what he was going to do. They were both pale. All color had seemed to have drained from their bodies. It appeared they were twins, about 9 years old, short shaggy black hair and sad brown eyes. They had blood pooled at their feet, but the thing that gave Naruto pause was the satisfied, cruel smiles on both their faces. It was when he instinctively reached out to test their chakra stores that he finally decided what he was going to do with them. So Ne-chans, do you want to come with me, or did you wish to remain on that wall? He asked with the same hollow smile. Their eyes lit up at his voice, and the one on the left croaked out, we are yours to command, master. Where does Gato keep his money? It was dark, his head hurt, and there was a faint beeping noise disturbing his sleep. All this was a very, very, very bad sign. If this was real, he had a god-awful headache, and he was dead. He was supposed to be dead. It wasn't right. If he survived, the ceiling hadn't worked, and his village would die. Opening blurry eyes, all he could see at first was a black film, but slowly everything came into focus. And sitting beside him in typical Sarutobi fashion, i.e. reading porn, was not other than his predecessor, the third Hokage. Okay, old man, what the hell is going on? Naruto sat in his mother's lap like when he was young, letting her embrace him in her arms. It had been a long night, and things were still troubling him. I can't take much more of this, Okasan. Q stroked his hair that was cradled against her neck. Oh? What is that, love? I hate them, Okasan. I hate them no better than monkeys, a lot of them. So disgusting, so grotesque and insignificant, we should just slaughter them all, Okasan. Hush, love, Konoha will get what is coming to them, we'll see to that. Besides, don't you want to make them BG for death? Then be gracious enough to give it to them? Naruto was pacified by this, letting his mom rub calming circles down his back, soothing him like only a mother can. The twins from earlier would be useful. He already had them healed, and training would begin soon. They would keep to the shadows for now, though no one would ever know about them until the time was right. Keeping Gato's death secret had been surprisingly easy. Monkeys were really idiotic creatures. Naruto needed those two to think he was alive, so they'd come for the bridge builder but get him. It wouldn't take much to convince them to flip sides. He had enough money to convince them. Really, the only challenge was convincing them without his teammates' knowledge. That shouldn't put up too much of a problem, really, though one never really knew. He signed soon he would have to return to the bridge builder's house. Been gone too long already. At 2 days he didn't need Kakashi doing something stupid like looking for him. He shifted a little in his mother's arms, glad she'd finally gotten clothes. Not that he really cared, just it was far more comfortable than sticky skin. The sun breached over the horizon, ending his beautiful night. You should return to your other form. We will need to return to them soon. Naruto felt his annoyance growing more steadily by the hour, finding it harder and harder keeping from slaying the lot of them. Idiotic, that's what they were, idiotic and foolish. Right when he got back, he had been informed that while he was off gallivanting around, his teammates had been receiving training from the oh-so-incompetent Kakashi. Kakashi then had proceeded to tell him to try the way below his level tree walking, which he had completed within 2 seconds. Though it did give him some satisfaction to see the look on Sasuke's face when he had really, it was priceless. That boy's arrogance had ceased to amuse him, however, soon after. After that he'd been given the oh-so-lovely task of guarding a boring bridge crawling with disgusting fear-drenched humans. It wasn't really that, however, that has him reaching his breaking point, though those tasks were particularly annoying in and of themselves. No, what was getting him, there was a sniveling boy who stank of fear that wouldn't stop screeching about how horrible his life was, how they were all going to die, and whimpering about how they shouldn't even try. Really, it was enough that after a week of not speaking a word to the low lives that surrounded him, he couldn't take it anymore. Naruto slammed his hand down, drawing everyone's attention around the table, and effectively shutting the pathetic boy up. He turned hard, cold eyes to him, sneering, Really, your life is so bad? I wouldn't understand the little pain that you're going through, really? Well, perhaps I should just kill you, so shut your whinny ass up. You know nothing of pain, you pathetic sniveling little coward. You haven't even scratched the surface of this world's horrors. I will say this once and this is all the warning you're ever gonna get. Shut up or I'll show you what real pain, that's a promise. Naruto didn't even stay to study all the shocked, fear-riddled faces. He needed to kill something now. Kakashi looked at the faces staring at him from around the dinner table, food long forgotten, sighing it was time for some damage control. He eyed the kid, his little face was still slack from the shock of being told off. On one hand, he really didn't care. Naruto had put the kid in his place. He had no right to say the things he did. He didn't know the lives they have led. On the other hand, his student just gave a death threat to a civilian, and it was his job to make it right. A little sigh escaped before he cleared his throat. I'm sorry about Naruto, ma'am, he said, looking at the boy's mother. Naruto hasn't had the easiest of lives. He's never really had a family. Naruto sat brooding a little, petting his mother furiously in his lap, trying to resist the urge to kill everyone in the house he just left. It was his damn father's entire fault. If he hadn't been an idiot, and had the old man tells everyone in the village about his mother, then he wouldn't be here. As he thought about it more, he realized he had mixed feelings about the entire thing. Sure, he was beaten, broken, and cursed by the stupid monkeys of that village. However, without his father he wouldn't have met his mother. He hated the village, there was no doubt about that. He would kill them and his father, it was just he very well might thank them before he did. Naruto laughed insanely at that. Oh yes, he'd say his thank you while he killed them slowly. He could almost imagine the look on their faces as he did, and it did wonders to calm him. Thinking on it, he knew his father felt some sort of affection for him, if only for the fact Naruto was his son, and it would make it all the sweeter when he betrayed them. Now that he really turned his thoughts to that, the fact his father was alive really sunk in. Absent-minded, he went to the nearby lake and looked at his reflection. Yes, he could see it, especially with his choker on. Naruto looked like a carbon copy of the yandere. Hell, even in his true appearance you could see the resemblance if you looked for it. It made him wonder why no one else had put two and two together before. The only difference between the yandere and him would be his whisker marks on each cheek. Suddenly an idea popped into his head. He could use that resemblance to his advantage. It would be a real blow to the moral, now that he thought about it, to see him dressing/looking like their beloved hero, especially with said hero walking around. Add that to the fact that now he was up and about, so to speak, he was sure the yandere would announce his heritage. Yes, that would be exactly what someone as foolhardy as his father would do, tell them all he's his son, and how hurt he was that they treated Naruto unfairly. Oh yes, the village would get a slap on the wrist, and a don't do it again before his idiotic father took his post again. It will be more of a challenge now that the yandere was alive to lead them. Definitely wouldn't be as easy to crush them now. Naruto wasn't completely sure if he was happy or frustrated about that. He sneered, thinking of how his father would be all apologetic, and would probably want to be best of friends. From what he had heard about him, that's exactly what he'd do. After all, Naruto had mimicked his alleged behavior with his mask, and that was something he would have done. Naruto scoffed. It didn't sit well with him at all, really. It made him downright sick thinking about going back to that place. His hands kneaded forcefully into his mother's for making her cry out in indignity, forcing him back to the present. Sighing, he shoved all that considerable hate down, focusing on his goals ahead. Smiling emptily, he picked his mother up and placed her on his shoulders before deciding a walk in the forest was in order. In his black, twisted little heart, he really did love his mother. She was something like a pet, almost something that wasn't allowed to leave. Of course, they had discussed mating habits of his kind before, something of a demonic sex talk, but unlike some would probably come to think, he loved her in a platonic sense. She raised him, taught him how to survive, gave him strength, and did as any mother would for her son. His instincts because of that would never see her as a sexual being, more like a mentor. When he looked at her, he saw his mother. She was beautiful, strong, and everything he would expect her to be as his mother. He didn't think he would be interested in mating anytime soon anyway. He wouldn't reach sexual potency for some time yet, but that didn't mean he couldn't look for an available partner. Really, who wants children anyway? Right as you start something like that, it would really be too crowded for his tastes. Naruto wasn't really sure why his thoughts strayed to his line of thinking anyway, most likely just to get everything that was troubling him off his mind. Well, it certainly worked. Thinking of caring for a child disgusted him at the moment. He didn't think he'd ever be ready for that. His mother was mature enough to adopt him with no problems. Instinct really took over when it came to caring for kids. Did he even have that instinct? That would be something to dwell on another time, though, when he had a suitable partner, not when he had barely reached his 12th year of life. Scowling, he blamed the humanity of his early years for this. Really, he was thinking like a human who barely had a lifespan. As they would drop around him like flies, he would live on, seemingly untouched by time. That gave him insane glee to know. Minato sat there in shock, not wanting to believe anything the old man had said. It just wasn't possible. Not his village. Sarutobi just got done telling him the gist of what happened while his was away. Basically, his son had a horrible life so far. The village he had sacrificed himself for had taunted him and treated the exact opposite of his last wishes. That is to say, if he believed a word the old man had said, it couldn't be. He refused to believe it. His village wouldn't do those things to his son. His baby was fine. The old man even said that the few that had treated him badly never got to him at all. His son was a chip off the old block, always smiling and pranking. Yeah, it was just a few bad apples doesn't make the tree bad. When he got back in shape and announced whom exactly they treated badly, they'd apologize. They would see the light and start treating his son like the hero he was, then everything would be better. He'd make it up to him somehow. beg forgiveness, and train him up. Naruto would understand it had to be done to save the village. And now that he was back they could get to know each other. It'd be great. Minato would even teach him his yellow flash technique. Naruto had to know he loved him, and he had to do what was best for the village. The Kyuubi would have killed everyone. It would take a week for Naruto to finish his mission in the Wave Country. He had just enough time to get back in shape and give everyone a good talking down. Oh, Naruto was going to be so surprised when he got back. Everyone would look at him differently, and Minato would wait with open arms for his son to come home. He could almost see it now. Everyone who'd been awful to Naruto would apologize with tears in their eyes. Naruto would see him, and once he told him that he was his father, Naruto would run to him with open arms. They'd hug, catch up over ramen, hide from fangirls and get to know one another. Naruto was going to be so excited that he would be trained by the Yellow Flash, and Minato would make sure he was ready for the Chunin exams. It would be so perfect. As he ranted on about his wild daydreams to Sarutobi, he failed to see the slight worried frown on his old face. There isn't much that surprises Naruto much anymore, so when he woke up that morning hearing two samurai threaten the two monkeys in the house, it didn't really surprise him. What did was that he had fallen asleep at all, in a tree no less, but it was okay. His mother stood guard. The racket was so annoying Naruto killed them quickly just to shut them up. This of course had the unfortunate side effect of the little monkeys' worship. Then Naruto realized if they had thugs here, the two he really wanted to talk to must be on the bridge going after the builder, leading to Naruto promptly teleporting there to watch the fight as it developed. The Uchiha was in an ice dome and Kakashi was just about to impale his ally. Naruto really hated it, but he supposed it was fate's idea of a joke to put him in some sort of heroic light. So when he appeared just in time to grab Kakashi's wrist and throw him across the bridge, effectively saving both missing knees, everyone was in a state of shock. Bored, his eyes went to Haku, then Zabuza. You trained your weapon well, but it needs sharpening. It was odd seeing the mix of emotions on their faces. His so-called enemies, the real enemies here, were his teammates, at least to him. Zabuza didn't know what to make of the emotionless, very scary child that stood before him. The only title that really seemed to suit him though was Demon. Child meant something innocent after all. Haku on the other hand had been given a new goal. He was a good weapon, the blonde at least could see that, but he needed sharpening. He had a purpose once again. It was strange though to be given something as vital as a purpose from a stranger. Then again, Zabuza was a stranger once. Maybe they had found another who could understand. There was a look in this boy's eyes that said more than words to Haku. It was very clear. This man-child or demon, whatever title one could give something like them, had seen the real horrors of life. That was an invisible bond that had attracted them to him in the first place. Truthfully, they had attacked today not for the builder but for the boy. The blonde demon that had frightened Zabuza so but captivated them both with the power that surrounded him. The blonde smirked before them like he knew their every thought and tossed the scroll at Haku, who caught it, read it through and let me know. That was all he said before turning to face his fuming and scared teammates. You should go. I killed Gato a while back. There's no paycheck here. Smiling empty, he just kept walking right past his frozen team to the end of the bridge, waiting for something neither really wanted to find out. Naruto watched them both nod and leave accordingly while his sensei was too distracted by him to interfere once again. He really wondered sometimes how these pathetic so-called shinobi were even alive. Not that it mattered much to him. Naruto was waiting for what he knew would come, and not 3 minutes later did it happen. The mist cleared on the finished side of the bridge, and what was left of the Gato gang appeared right on schedule. Naruto's smile widened in malicious glee. He'd be bathed in blood in no time at all. He really wanted to see their faces as he slaughtered them. Before them, the leading hulk of useless flesh they thought was a leader could even speak. Naruto had his heart in his hand, blood bathing down his arm. He let himself go after that. It was like he was a child again, breaking apart his favorite toys like he did when his mother had first started to teach him to hunt. Limbs flew everywhere. He moved too fast for them to see. That's what scared them the most. He could smell their fear. It was intoxicating. He hadn't given in to his bloodlust in so long. Not truly since the creation of his mask had he had so much fun. Blood poured down like rain over him as he threw body after body in the air, using guts like strings of a yo-yo to play with them. Naruto was bathed in blood. Not much really mattered to him, but the sound of tearing apart flesh with his bare hands. He didn't hear Sakura scream, Sasuke vomit, or see Kakashi pale. Nothing mattered but the sweet feeling of blood coating his skin for the first time in a long time. He was so happy, in fact he didn't even realize he'd begun to sing his lullaby in a haunting voice that mixed with the cries of his victims. Hush, little demon, don't you cry. He ripped the eyes off the man that stood frozen in fear before him. His smile was wide and cruel. No one cares how you feel inside. Kakashi shivered, unable to look away or stop listening to this haunting melody. There weren't many left, but Naruto had his Kage Bunshin block them in to keep them from running away. But if you make them scream in pain, he had them lined up now for torture. They were screaming. There were only 5 left, and he stood before them, blood covered from head to toe, a demon from hell. The first was brought forward swiftly. The clones shattered his kneecaps to force him to kneel. Naruto murmured, "The tears you cried won't be in vain." He took his head between his hands and there was a squishing sound as he crushed it. Because in the end there's only power. His smile didn't leave his face, terrible in its emptiness. He lined the remaining 4 up, careful to have his clones line them up straight, kneecaps removed so they couldn't run. Before you they all will cower. He drew a deep breath and set them aflame. The screams were like music, really so high and loud in pain as they dragged themselves, trying in vain to put the flames out. Naruto danced flickering in and out of sight while he sang the final chords. So hush little demon, don't you cry, because in the end they all will die. He was on high as the force set flame to the other corpses, filling the air with the smell of burning flesh. Naruto disappeared after that, leaving his teammates nightmares that would follow them the rest of their lives. He hummed his lullaby as he walked carelessly to the bridge builder's house, slow and casual. When he got there he almost wished he hadn't. The little monkey, his mother, and the rest of the villagers were gathered there armed for battle. Unfortunately, they had heard him and were looking at him in a strange mix of expectation, wanting news of Gato, and horror at the blood that coated him like a second skin. Gato's gang is dead, don't worry, I made sure they suffered. Naruto wasn't quite sure why he was talking at all. But then he saw the maliciously satisfied faces of the starved townspeople, and decided these monkeys might not be too bad after all. Maybe he'd come here after he destroyed Konoha, it would be a good base of operation, and he had their loyalty, he could see that from the looks on their faces. Maybe being their hero wouldn't be so bad, he did need allies where he could get them after all. He mused on that thought for a while. Yes, they could make decent allies when the time came. However, if they were to be of any use to him, they would need to get stronger fast. With that in mind, he faced Tsunami, staring at her a moment, thinking, she was reliable, he had her loyalty, and her son, she'd be perfect to lead this bunch. His indifferent eyes gazed out across the townspeople that had gathered there looking at him in gratitude. He'd have to do just one more thing to ensure that they would join his side when the time came. I killed Gato a while back. He took out one of his ceiling. You'll need this if you're gonna build up your town again. He bit his thumb, sliding it across the seal, and with a pop a huge stack of money appeared, though it was only a fraction of what he'd taken from his raid. The townspeople let loose a roar of joy, and he could see in their eyes that he was their hero. Yes, this would all work very nicely. In the end, all he needed was to tie up his business with the other toe, and his plans would be set in motion. Tsunami, break this up evenly between the lot of you, come get me when you're down. With that, the 12-year-old boy trudged his way up to the house to get himself clean. Naruto loved blood, but when it dried it was just as disgusting as the humans it came from. He stripped his clothes off quickly, wanting to shower as fast as possible, using searing hot water to scrub himself clean. Mother had gone off when he'd awakened this morning to check the twins' progress with the clone that was training them. Not that he really needed to see it, because whatever his clone knew, he knew. She had just wanted to see for herself how his weapons were progressing. It was really surprising the rate they were going. He'd have use for them in 6 months, maybe sooner. Their devotion to him was useful, though they'd do anything to please him, so they trained until they dropped. Mother was even thinking that if they showed enough promise that she'd show him how to turn them. However, they were much too weak for that now. They'd never survive the whole process. It'd kill them before they were even useful. He put too much work, and they were too important to his plans to be discarded anytime soon. Sighing when he was finally clean, he dried himself before putting an identical outfit just in time to hear the knock at his door. Tsunami had come just as he had requested. That was good. She was starting to understand her place well. After taking her aside and telling her in no uncertain terms he was helping them so they could get strong enough to help him in turn. Not surprisingly, she readily agreed before he could even finish telling her why he needed their help. Not that he'd explain everything to her even if she asked, but it was still pleasing to see how eager they were to be his servants. It was child's play then to outline a plan to get the town back on its feet in no time at all, so they'd be of some use to him. Tazuna and his teammates came back just before nightfall. They seemed very surprised that Naruto was at the house. All three keep their distance from him, not wanting to provoke their psychotic teammate. Kakashi was greatly disturbed. Naruto's mental health seemed to be failing. If it kept up, he'd have to tell Sarutobi that Naruto was a risk. If that happened, he'd most likely be assassinated, but Kakashi had no grasp on just how strong Naruto really was. If Naruto survived an attempt by them no less, there was no doubt in his mind that Naruto would turn on them like a feral dog. He hated to admit it, but he was afraid of him. This was not the loud, brash idiot he had gotten somewhat used to. No, this was a demon, a monster. The worst thing about it was that Kakashi knew that they had created this demon. Konoha couldn't see that they were hurting a child when Naruto was young. They refused to see past their hate. Their hate had created this thing. It was their hatred that nurtured it as it grew. Naruto knew nothing of the goodness of their village. The problem was they had forgotten what true demons were. They had forgotten the cold, debilitating fear a true demon brought when placed before them. Kakashi admitted even he had forgotten until the bridge, until Naruto snapped like that. He saw a shadow of the fear the Kyuubi attack had brought. It made him freeze and made him work on overdrive to analyze how Naruto had gotten so far gone without anyone seeing. In the end, he realized no one saw Naruto, not truly. Most saw the demon, and attacked him because of that. Kakashi remembered Naruto when he was young, all wide smiles and sunny disposition. That was no demon. Naruto even smiled when they beat him. He remembered that vividly. A true demon would have killed them, and none had seen that. They had forgotten to fear it. If Naruto had been the demon they had all said he was, they would have pissed themselves in fear. They would have not gotten away with just a smile. Most of them would be dead. However, their hate blinded them to any of that, and now they had turned a child into the demon they had thought he was from the beginning. Kakashi had never felt so old in his entire life. Was this really what they had been reduced to, a bitter child abusers? Sasuke had different thoughts entirely. He was unnerved and more than a little scared of this new powerful Naruto. What he saw at the bridge reminded him of the massacre once again. The utter brutality of it all reminded him of the difference between Itachi and him. Naruto and Itachi were the same in that aspect. They just didn't care. No, they remained indifferent to the entire thing. To them, killing was a second nature. They fit into their roles like a second skin. They didn't have to try to forget the faces of their victims, they just did. It also became so much clearer to him now, he didn't want to end up like that, and they both were insane, feeling nothing. Sasuke tried to mimic his brother before the incident, and even now he realized he'd been trying to do it. The emotion of it was what set him apart from his brother. It was because he could feel that it held him back in the end. He knew now what he must do. He had to stop pretending to be emotionless, and actually work on being it. He needed to become so much more powerful. If he could ever hope to kill Itachi, he needed to seek more power out. Sasuke hadn't achieved his Sharingan yet, but that was just something else that separated him from his loathsome brother. One thing was for sure though, he had to be more cautious around Naruto. He was unstable, and he didn't feel like dying anytime soon. Sakura had the same thoughts, just more obsessive, thinking of never angering Naruto ever again. She didn't want to die just yet. The remaining days they had left while the bridge was being constructed was tense. The rest of Team 7 walked on eggshells around Naruto, not wanting him to snap. The villagers were the exact opposite, falling all over themselves to see to his every need and wanting nothing more than to see him pleased. Naruto was having the time of his life. His mother and his clones were training up the twins nicely. They would be great weapons. He had gotten a message from Haku and Zabuza. They had accepted his mission. Things were coming along nicely. In a year, maybe two, everything would be in place and Konoha would fall before him. His mood was helped though to see that the humans of this village had already accepted their place, serving him, that is. Everyone in the village was working hard to make this place a thriving trade center once again, and soon it would be useful. Already he was seeing improvement. Stretching his back as he walked through the forest, he heard a pop as he limbered up. He would be meeting up with his mother and clone today to see how his little weapons were progressing. It was really quite funny just how fanatically devoted they were to him. Coming into the clearing, he saw the twins working on their chakra control. They seemed to be progressing nicely. His clone had been dispelled already, and his mother was already walking to him to greet him. The twins had stopped when the clone dispelled and were looking up at him in utter devotion and loyalty. Their once shaggy hair had been brushed into submission, making it shine, and was braided down their backs. Bangs were cut short to keep from obscuring their eyes. They had gained some color from before and some weight, making them look much healthier. Naruto had gotten them both clothes of the finest training quality. Black cargo pants with many hidden pockets, and purple kimono tops ties off with black sashes at the waist. They had weapon pouches tied to their right and left legs with a staff strapped to each of their backs respectively. They were both very committed to him and dedicated their all into training these last 2 weeks. It really showed. Naruto estimated they were low genin level already, and he had no doubt that in a month or so they'd be easily chunin. In a year they'd be ready for their roles in his plans. Looking at them waiting patiently for him to speak, he almost smirked, remembering that they didn't even know their own names. They'd been sold into slavery early, barely 4 from what he recalled, and no one had ever named them. If their parents had, they had long since forgotten them. I suppose if you're to serve me I must call you something, he said, and saw both their eyes glow with something he didn't quite understand. He studied them both closely, wondering what to name to gift them. With chuckling he decided. Pointing to the one on the left he said, "Your name is Chuko now," shifting to the one on the right, "and your name will be Hinako." He laughed a little more when their faces spilt into big happy grins. It was quite amusing how they were so easily pleased, though he did like their names. After all, twins should have related names. Naming one Butterfly Child and the other Flower Child just made them closer to the other. "Today will be our last day in the Wave Country for a while. Tomorrow we will be heading back to Konoha. I expect you to remain hidden. Follow, but if one of the Leaf sees you I will be most displeased." They just looked eager to prove themselves to him. Satisfied they knew what he expected of them, he turned to him. "Mother, I want you to go into the seal. You'll be safe there. I don't want to give them the slightest chance at sealing you up in another vessel." Q just nodded her assent. Her child had grown and was her heir now. Soon he will be much more powerful than she ever was. It would be wise to remain on his good side. Once his mother was back within the seal, he created a blood clone to remain with the sisters. He needed to up their training as soon as they reached Konoha. They left the village the next day after the bridge was finally finished, and named the Great Naruto Bridge. The run home was not nearly as long as the walk there, but Team 7 was tense. They couldn't force themselves to relax around Naruto, all vividly remembering the bridge. When they finally reached Konoha, all but Naruto breathed a sigh of relief. Kakashi had resolved to not voice his concerns about Naruto to the third. He just didn't know how Naruto would react if something like that were to happen. He had already discussed it with Sasuke and Sakura. They were in agreement. As long as Naruto didn't do anything to attack Konoha, they wouldn't mention the bridge. They never noticed the change the village had seemed to have gone through since their departure, but Naruto did. He couldn't keep the scowl off his face as he realized what was going on. His teammates were used to ignoring him now. They were just more cautious about what they did around him, but they still ignored him. Naruto saw the looks the villagers were giving him, and he didn't like it one bit, not at all. No one was sneering or snarling at him, none shouted names at him as he passed, and there was no boiling hate in their eyes. It disturbed him to no end. Hate he could understand to some extent, but the looks of guilt/remorse that painted their faces now just unsettled him. Their faces were full of sorrow. As they looked at him, some even tried to hesitantly smile at him. Naruto knew what this must mean, and he didn't like it one bit. The fourth must have recovered and told them who he had been before his untimely death. By the time they have reached the tower, Naruto was visibly on edge. He couldn't shake it, couldn't get used to not being hated. A part of his whispered this was a trap, that even humans couldn't be this fickle as to go from hating him to feeling sympathy for him after 12 years. Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that this was just some elaborate hoax to get his guard down and kill him while he was unawares. He refused to fall for any of it. This fake kindness, none of this was real. His mother always did. Saw when he started to show his true capabilities, they would fawn over him. They wanted him to stop hating them because they feared him. They didn't wish to die the ways he had planned. He wouldn't be swayed from his path. Nothing could keep him from hating them for all they had done. Hate was all he had. After all, it's all he ever was. He didn't understand concepts like love at all. To him, that was just a weakness. Sure, he was fond of his mother. She was useful, strong, and had raised him. However, should she ever betray him in any way, it wouldn't cause him to hesitate to kill her. Naruto didn't really know true love at all. After all, by the time Q had gotten around to talking to him, he had been way too far gone. Naruto had some emotions left, yes, and he was somewhat attached to his mother. That was why she was not allowed to leave him under any circumstance. If she ever tried, he would strike her down before she could. He wouldn't allow her to abandon him as everyone else had in his life. Like the third had abandoned him to the villagers' wrath when he had seen him as a parental figure, he would never allow that to happen to him again. The Kyuubi was loyal. She wouldn't walk away from her duties as a parent, but they both knew if she ever even thought of it, he'd have her head. So lost in his thoughts, he barely realized they were almost to the debriefing room until they were before the doors waiting for their turn to see the Hokage. Thoughts of abandonment, traps and hatred had Naruto strung very taut. He was very close to snapping, and he didn't know if it was wise to see the Hokage now, as he was sure that the Yondaime had taken his post once more. Team 7 noticed how on edge Naruto was and were twitchy. They didn't know what had upset him, though they all were on guard. They entered the room after another Chunin team had left, wanting to get this over with fast before something finally set Naruto off. When they entered, though everything went to hell, Kakashi froze. Sasuke and Sakura looked bewildered. Naruto, he just started to shake so subtly that no one noticed. They were too distracted. There in the place the third was supposed to be, there was a blonde, blue-eyed man who looked vaguely familiar to the two genin, and had Kakashi stunned. The fourth smiled genially, eyes zeroing in on Kakashi first as Naruto had stood slightly behind Sakura, hidden from his line of sight. "Well, Kakashi-kun, I'm glad you're back finally. Did you miss me?" he asked with his trademark cocky grin. Kakashi, broken out of his daze, set out flaring his chakra and shouting Ki, repeatedly, sure that they were stuck in a genjutsu or that he was a henge. However, when none of it worked and Minato remained, he fell to his knees in shock, stuttering out how. The two genin, who had no idea what was going on, were greatly disturbed. "I woke up a week ago. Somehow my soul was released from the Shinigami's grip." By then Minato had gotten up from his seat and started to approach the team. "Kakashi, where is Naruto? Where is my son?" He hadn't noticed Naruto yet, and Kakashi had fallen over in shock after that announcement. Shaking, he pointed in Sakura's direction. Curious, Minato looked, and his eyes found Naruto not a second later. Relief flooded through him when his gaze fell on his son. He was unharmed and, unlike the old man had said, was wearing a suitable shinobi outfit, though it was a little plain for his tastes. Minato smiled brilliantly before it fell, and his eyes carried sadness. "Naruto, I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to grow up like that," he said as he moved toward his son, "but I'm here now. I've set them straight. No one will ever be mean to you again. I've taken up the Hokage post once again. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there to see you grow, Naruto. You're my son. I will try to make it up to you somehow." He reached Naruto as he finished his little impromptu speech and engulfed him in a tight hug, tears falling unashamed from his eyes, pouring all his love into it. Naruto stood there stiff. No one had touched him in a positive way but his mother, though it was much different than this touch. Naruto didn't understand. It felt wrong, and his already tight nerves grew tighter each passing second as the man touched him. The others in the room were once again frozen, shocked that Minato had hugged Naruto, and waiting to see how Naruto would take this sudden assault. "I love you, son," Minato whispered as he held Naruto tighter. That proved too much for Naruto. He finally snapped, and a scream of rage mixed with fear and confusion ripped through his throat. He shoved Minato violently away from him, and clutched his head, eyes wide and bloodshot. He just kept screaming. Minato had fallen to the ground, and Team 7 was backing away from Naruto slowly. Kakashi was dragging shocked Minato away from Naruto, who just fell to his knees, still screaming, his chakra swirling around him. Naruto's eyes got a glazed look to them as the hands grasping at his head broke skin, and he felt blood trickle between his spade fingers. He stopped screaming, but his eyes still had a broken, insane look to them. Insane amounts of chakra was rolling off him in waves. One hand shakily moved from his head to grab his stomach forcefully. Eyes darted around as Naruto started to mutter crazily. At first quietly, so quiet in fact no one could hear him until his voice started to pick up volume. Okasan, he touched me, he says he loves me. Okasan, I don't understand. Okasan, I don't understand." He started to scream again, clutching his head again, and started to rock on his knees. The remaining occupants of the room didn't know what to do and just stood there as Naruto screamed on. Then a malicious chakra started to mix with Naruto's blue one, blood red, and filled everyone with such fear they couldn't move. There was a hissing sound as more and more crimson chakra gathered around Naruto. Only the two older men in the room knew enough about what was going on to truly be frightened. Naruto stopped screaming as more chakra gathered and the form of a woman could be seen. Formed from pure chakra, she was pure blood red. Her eyes and mouth seemed to be the only thing real about her. She had 9 tails swishing every which way as she approached the rocking muttering form of Naruto. Minato felt the blood in his veins freeze as he looked at the woman, knowing just whom she really was. Q smiled nastily, showing off her sharp, deadly, real teeth to the men who watched her crouch down behind Naruto. "Don't you dare touch him!" Minato screamed as he realized how close the monster was to Naruto. Q didn't listen though and pulled Naruto back against her chest, embracing him as she had once before long ago, when he was still very much human. Her voice had an echo and overlapping quality to it that ran shivers up their spines. Now Naruto, hush. What has mother told you about screaming?" Kyuubi said mockingly, looking straight at Minato. "Oka-san, I don't understand," he cried. "Oka-san, he hugged me," Naruto said hysterically, turning into her embrace. "Shhh, Oka-san is here. Didn't I tell you, Naruto? Didn't I warn you they'd do this? Try to make you believe you're wanted? That you're loved? They lie, Naruto, no one could ever love you. No one but I cares if you live. Remember, Naruto, how they hurt you?" The Kyuubi spoke loud enough so they could clearly hear her every word. Her eyes bore mockingly into Minato, who stood there. "Remember who took care of you, Naruto, remember my words. They hate you, they want you dead. Don't let yourself be fooled with their lies. No one but I loves you." Minato watched helpless as the demon gripped his son, telling him lies. His heart broke as he saw his only son's eyes dim and die. Naruto's luminous orbs looked so dead they could have been a corpse's. His tone was just as flat and a dead monotone. "Yes, of course, mother, how foolish of me. I am a monster. I am hated. Nothing will ever love me. I am nothing without you, mother." "He lies, no one can love a monster. Forgive me, I lost sight of what I am for a moment." Minato cringed like it was a blow to him. Kyuubi's smile widened cruelly, and Kakashi was visibly shaking. "See, my little demon, they do not care for you, they do not understand you, and they hate you so much they gave you to me. Remember that, little one, they hate you." Naruto nodded as tears fell from his right eye, the one that had remained blue even after he had turned into a demon. "Of course, mother, I must never forget. You are always right. Will you sing it for me, mother? I need to hear your lullaby." In a mockery of motherhood, the Kyuubi cradled her broken kit. The day had been too much for him to handle. His mind had been broken more by it. However, the Kyuubi was satisfied by it. Naruto still needed her, and she could see all the pain this was causing her. Minato, it was sweet revenge. It may not have been wise, but she decided it would truly crush Minato to hear what she sung to Naruto every night. "Hush, little demon, don't you cry. No one cares how you feel inside. Don't you let their lies deceive, because it's only revenge you'll need. They beat you till you broke inside, and that's how you came to reside in a darkness cold and deep. It's your secrets I will keep." Minato finally couldn't take it anymore and flung an eye at her. It passed through her harmless. Q laughed maliciously at him as her form dissipated and the malevolent chakra receded to Naruto's navel. Naruto looked calm, no more like he was a corpse, as he stood up emotionlessly like nothing ever happened. Minato looked shaken as he stared at his only son, finally seeing just how broken he really was. Kakashi was thinking about just how many lies the Kyuubi had whispered into Naruto's ear, and the rest were just standing there confused as all hell. Naruto's head was bowed, but when he rose his face to look at Minato, it was as if Minato had been struck through the heart with a rusty katana. "Hokage-sama, we have come to debrief our mission," Naruto droned on. "Kakashi-sensei should be able to report everything to you. I will take my leave now." He walked from the room before Minato could stop him. Minato's fist clenched at his sides as he finally took in just how much he had failed his boy. "This never leaves this room. It is now an S-class secret. If any of you breath a word, I'll have you killed. Do you understand?" His tone was harsh and fierce, broaching no argument. All three stood at attention and wisely said in unison, "Hi, Hokage-sama. Genin, leave. Kakashi, tell me exactly what has happened to my son." His voice was steely as he stared his former pupil down. Sasuke and Sakura left the room, fast, hearts racing in fright. Kakashi meanwhile started to relate Naruto's life in excruciating detail of everything he knew. Minato was pale by the end, and was disgusted. Kakashi didn't even know everything. What he did know had Minato feeling so lost. How could his village, he sacrificed himself, and his son done this? They didn't finish until late in the afternoon, and by then Minato had already begun to question his choices in life. Naruto, while all this was going on, was standing atop the Hokage monument, staring out but not really seeing anything. He was trapped inside his own thoughts. He saw in his mind's eye everything that this village had done to him, some things even Sarutobi didn't know, courtesy of his mother. His hate ate at him, and just as he thought he'd throw away all his devious plans to tear it down, now his superhuman senses zeroed in on something that changed his mind. Hinata Hyuga was a shy, nervous girl who had followed him around like a lost puppy for years. Naruto had always written her off as weak, but now that he was looking, he could see such potential. That, and from his perch he could hear just exactly what it was that had made Hinata the way she was. She was standing there in the Hyuga compound courtyard, invisible to everyone around her, who whispered what a shame she was to the family. She was like him, he realized, broken, ignored, and hated for something that wasn't her doing. He cocked his head to the side. The more he thought about it, he couldn't be the only one who had been tortured in this village. How much sweeter would it be to turn Konoha against herself? This line of thought brought something new to his already twisted plans and a malicious shimmer into his eyes, making them seem less dead. His path was clear: turn Hinata against her clan, and anyone else who was hated he would search out to bring into his fold. Yes, Konoha would fall and Naruto would rise from the ashes along with everyone else that was going to learn to hate this place as much as he did. His hollow smile spread across his face, and a low violent chuckle escaped from his lips. He would sharpen and add more weapons to his collection, but first 100 shadow clones appeared silently behind him. You know what to do. The copies of him nodded as they spilled off to do as their master commands. Another idea began to take form in his mind as Naruto walked silently down from the Hokage head, and his smile turned into the Kyuubi's patented grin. They want to know what hit them. He mumbled as he made his way to his apartment to fine-tune this new thought. Naruto found himself once again atop the Hokage monument gazing out at the village he hated so. This week had been enlightening to say the least. He had come to terms with something he had not expected to find. He wasn't the only one who hated this village so, and the thought had never occurred to him before. They were still very much a minority, but there was more people who hated this village than he thought there was, all of them living right under his nose. He sat down, bringing a knee to his chest to rest his chin on to think through this pleasant addition to his plans. He'd been sending clones on the missions that Team 7 got so that he would not have to see the Hokage again anytime soon. That wasn't for the Hokage's lack of trying. It seemed everywhere he went, or sent his clones there, he was waiting for him. It was grating his nerves. His sperm donor was the symbol of everything Naruto hated in life, the village, the broken seal on his navel, his pain, his insanity, and he wouldn't allow himself to be tricked. He would never forget the hate in which he grew up in, never forget the whispers of demon, the rotten food, the beatings and the loneliness. They were looking at him differently now with sorrowful looks and guilt-ridden kindness. They thought that just because they felt remorse for their actions now he would spare them. Well, that wasn't going to happen. 12 years of hate wasn't going to be washed away with a pitiful "I'm sorry" now. When he was weaker and still human, he had begged them to stop, begged them not to hit him, to feed him, to love him, and not hate him. He had been pathetic, but he still had done that. If they couldn't feel remorse then before his father announced his origins to the world, then they deserved no mercy from him. All this just proved to him how fickle and disgusting these flesh bags really were. They thought him the monster, they had beaten him down chanting how evil he was, but in his eyes they were the monsters. They were the demons, they were the ones who deserved to be punished, and he was going to give them. The clones he had deployed to spy on the village had been very helpful. In a month's time the Chunin exams would begin, and it would provide a great opportunity for him to scout out more potential allies. Naruto was many things, but he wasn't a fool. The humans were like locusts or ants. When they swarmed, even the mightiest would fall. They had already proven they were willing to sacrifice a lot to defeat the demons. Naruto had no will to see just how far they would go. Hinata was more than he could have hoped for. She had such potential that was so held back by her repulsive suck-up clan. It really was a shame. Soon he'd have enough information so that when he approached her, twisting her mind against this hellhole would be child's play. She had a gentle nature though that would have to be disposed of quickly. It would only hinder her growth in this world. Kindness was just an invitation to be walked on. She wasn't the only one who was an outcast in this village like him. Shino, her teammate, was a goldmine with his bugs and ability. Ironically, what made Shino interesting to Naruto made him creepy and unapproachable to the rest of the villagers. He wondered if he felt those bugs crawl under his skin. It was no wonder he was so calm all the time. There were a few others he'd been looking into, but those two stood out in his mind as the easiest to corrupt. Hell, if he got Shino, he was almost guaranteed the rest of the clan. He was the heir after all. That group never did anything against him after all, not one snide comment. In fact, and he respected them for that. True, they never did anything to defend him either, but unlike the third whom he had been somewhat close to, they had no obligation to defend him. It was even understandable that they didn't want to get involved since the whole family was somewhat shunned. Hate was all he ever knew, would ever know. Hate was what drove him. Things like love and affection were foreign concepts to him. Naruto couldn't understand them in the slightest. His mother protected him because that was her duty. Even from before, everything she did was a form of self-preservation. After all, demons could not truly love anything at all. Q said she loved him like her own kid, but how could he even tell if that is what she truly feels? After all, to know love one must experience what it is to love, and Naruto didn't think he had any love in himself to give to anyone. The Kyuubi may have been his mother, but he had been an orphan for long enough to have a fierce, independent streak in him. Had he been born from the Kyuubi, it may have been very different. Demonic kids tend to stay close to their mothers out of instinct. They knew their mothers would protect them, which was mostly the reason they remained weak for so long before their true strength could be seen. It was because he had no blood ties to the Kyuubi that he felt a consuming desire to get strong fast so he wouldn't end up dead. The Kyuubi's affection could only go so far. After all, to demons, blood was everything. That's why adoption was so rare among them. They wanted a blood heir, not a surrogate one. His eyes mapped out the village, idly imagining it all in flames and everyone running around screaming in pain. In the end, hate was all Naruto knew. It bubbled under the surface, waiting hungry for revenge. It consumed him, and he drowned in it. Hate was all that drove him now. Dull eyes searched, looking for something he just couldn't find. A small, quiet part of him wondered if there was more to life than this, something that could truly satisfy him, but no matter how hard he looked, he never found it. Hate was like a thirst that could never be quenched, and his desire for something more just made him hunger for something he didn't even know. Naruto realized that under all that hate he just felt empty, wanting something he didn't know and couldn't have. Just as the Yondaime represented everything he hated, the Kyuubi stood for his hate, the power behind his revenge. However, either could give him anything that he truly wanted. How could they when even he had no idea what he wanted? Minato growled in frustration once again. His son was slipping like water from his fingers. He couldn't even find him. Kakashi hadn't even known everything about his childhood, just what he'd seen, and it was enough to make him sick. He'd gotten the old man to tell him the full truth about some things after. His eyes stung once again as he thought about it. His little baby boy had been tortured for 9 days before they had found him. According to the old man, that's when Naruto's mental health had flown the coop and he'd been unstable ever since. Add that to what Kakashi said happened on the wave mission had him way beyond worried. That bitch's words were still ringing in his head. You gave him to me, and it was enough to make him bang his head against the wall a few times. It just kept going over and over again in his head, taunting him with his failures as his father. What disturbed him the most was that he knew she was right. He had for all intent and purposes given his only son to the devil. He was just now discovering how horrible that was. He tried all week to see him, to convince him that he was loved and that he truly did care for him. Minato had to prove to Naruto that he loved him, because if he didn't, Minato knew something would die inside of him. He had placed his trust with his village and had been betrayed. There was no denying it now. All Minato could do was use everything he had to make Naruto see how much he wanted him to be his son. A chance glance at his image on the mountain revealed the object of his musings to him. Quickly before Naruto could leave, he shooshined up there to talk to him. Naruto tensed when he felt the oh-so-familiar chakra behind him, and before he could move, Minato was on him, embracing him once again. I do care for you, Naruto, don't listen to her. I love you, please, please, I'll do anything to make you see. Naruto shrugged him off and turned his dull eyes to his sperm donor. Excuse me, Hokage-sama, I must ask you, don't tell such blatant lies. His voice was a cruel monotone. Who could love a monster? Minato stayed there frozen on his knees next to his only son, wishing for not the first time to take it all back, to hold his son close and run away. His arm moved up of its own accord as Naruto started to walk away, reaching out desperately for him. Wait! Naruto, let me prove it to you. Let me show you how much I love you. You're my son, you're my boy, I love you. Please! He knew he was begging pathetically, but he just didn't know what else to do. More than anything, he wanted his son to call him dad, to love him. Naruto stood still a moment, his thoughts drifting back to his earlier musings. He would never know love, only hate dwelled within him now. I don't need love, I don't need affection, and I certainly don't need you. Love is for fools, it makes you weak, and I don't need nor want love, he spat out. All that matters in this world is power. The strong kill the weak, and that is all that matters. You're wrong, Naruto. But if power is what you want, I can give you that too. Minato said in a weak voice. He just wanted his son back, he would do anything to get that. Minato remembered vividly the first time he had held him in his arms, and his first innocent little smile as he looked up at him. Naruto stood frozen. Why was he doing this? His father hated him. This had to be some trick to get his guard down around him. Well, he wouldn't fall for it, he wouldn't let himself be deluded by his man, but that didn't mean Naruto wouldn't use this to his full advantage. After all, what would kill his father more in the end than giving him this false hope and crushing it in the end? Minato watched his son freeze and consider his proposal with unease. It wasn't wise giving this boy more power. However, none of the consequences mattered to him as long as he got his son back. I'll see you at Training Ground 7 tomorrow at noon. Show me this power. If it isn't enough, I'll leave. Naruto said, as he left, not pausing to hear if his father agreed. Naruto remembered a lot of things. Nothing had ever been below his notice, even as a child before the Kyuubi. It was how he learned. He might not have many emotions now, but he remembered vividly the pain as he watched the other children be coddled by their parents. Hugs, kisses, and piggyback rides. He'd watched them be showered on, everyone but him. Kyuubi was his mother, but she never did anything like a human parent. No, everything she did was to teach him something. As such, Naruto had never experienced what it was to be held like the ones he watched, and he never would. If Minato thought after 12 years of living without such comforts Naruto wanted them now, he was sorely mistaken. As far as Naruto was concerned, he'd lived this long without him, and he didn't need nor want him now. Walking along the streets, deliberately ignoring anyone who tried to catch his eye, Naruto studiously thought out his plans for the future. Every moment of his life since that day when he was taken to be tortured, Naruto had been working towards his goal, to see Konoha burn. They were all hypocrites, and they were all lower than scum in his book. When he had been young and naive, Naruto had wanted them to see him, to love him. Now all he wanted was to watch them burn and scream for mercy that wouldn't be given. Everything he did had a strategic motive behind it. From becoming a genin to acting the fool, everything he did was for one purpose: destroying the place he called home. Idly he wondered if that's what Itachi had been thinking when he struck down his clan. That was something that had taken a lot of strength. If he ever had the chance, he would sway Itachi to his side by any means necessary. It would be all the sweeter if Naruto could just get enough Konohanin on his side that Konoha would be literally destroying itself. Not that all that mattered right now. He had enough on Hinata to approach her now. Swaying her wouldn't be hard with her docile nature, something Naruto hated but would use to his advantage now. He spotted her on Training Ground 7, alone, just as his clone had said. It was a perfect opportunity. It was pathetically easy to get behind her when she was distracted by training. He'd have to fix that if she was going to be of any worth. Hinata-chan, Naruto said, waiting for her to acknowledge him. She did so almost immediately, blushing scarlet and looking close to fainting. He kept his face neutral, biting back a growl. She would be useless if she didn't get past this horrible shyness afflicting her. Naruto-kun. What are you doing here? Come with me, Hinata, I want to show you something that will make you stronger. She followed him like a lost puppy on cloud 9 about being asked out by her crush. Naruto was somewhat disgusted by her behavior. Women seemed to be so weak, the only exception being his Kasa, and it seemed. Demons only look for one thing in a partner: strength. If they cannot defeat or at least fight on your level, they are not worth your time really. Naruto wanted a mate that would defy him, someone that was a challenge, because anything less was a waste. Women, it seemed, were only too eager to submit to your will. It was disgusting. He'd seen bouts of independence from a few, but they didn't last long. Hinata needed to be broken of her docile nature somewhat. Oh. He knew it was impossible to rid her of it all, he just needed to make her more heartless. They reached the deserted clearing fast enough. There wouldn't be anyone near there for miles. It was perfect for his means. In a flash he went from being in front of her to grabbing her from behind, securing both her arms within his grasp. Bringing his mouth to her ear, he whispered, "So weak, Hinata-chan? They've made you so weak?" "Naruto-kun?" Her voice was wavering in question, desperate to understand what was going on. Naruto didn't answer. He just made a few blood clones that hinged into members of her family, all while holding her. "Look at them, Hinata, they hate you. They've beaten you so far down within yourself you've become this sniveling mess of nothing. Weak. They want you to be weak, Hinata-chan." Tears started to roll down her shocked eyes as her father started to taunt her once again. Soon the rest of her family had joined in. Hinata started to struggle in his grip, trying to cover her ears to block it out. She'd heard this all before. The words weren't made up thing this new crueler Naruto made up. Everything that was coming out of their mouths she'd heard them say. Hinata could only take so much, and started to scream. Naruto smirked. "Sure, Hinata, I'll make you strong. I'll take you from this. All you have to do is prove to me you're worth my trouble." Hinata paused in her screams. Naruto just said part of what she'd been dreaming about for years. But how could she prove to him that she was worth his time? She was weak and couldn't do anything. Naruto smiled slyly, knowing exactly what she was thinking. It was all going exactly as he'd hoped. Releasing one of her arms, he reached into his holster and withdrew a kunai, placing it into her limp hand. "It's simple, Hinata. Prove to me your worth by killing them. Kill the images before you and I'll make you strong so you can exact this retribution in real life." "Kill them?" Hinata looked in horror at the weapon in her hand. Could she do it? Could she really kill her family for her Naruto-kun? Looking up at their sneering faces, the decision was made. Yes, she could. With a snarl she broke from his suddenly loose grasp and charged at her family. Naruto couldn't help but smile when she slit her father's throat, first seeing her surprise at the actual blood that soaked her hands. When the clone dispelled, she had gotten over her shock and was already charging her sister for the next kill. Hinata would be promising indeed, though she was much too weak to get what she wanted of him. Naruto knew she would never be strong enough to merit any romantic notice from him. As she ripped into another clone, he thought, then again, you never know. The rest of the evening was spent training this stronger Hinata. He was bent on making her worth his time. The first thing he did was change her fighting style so that she could be unpredictable. They'd have to work on it for a good while though. They separated that night with a promise he'd train her tomorrow. Really, he was just going to send a blood clone, but she didn't need to know that. Naruto was at the training grounds the next day waiting for his father when he heard the twang of a thrown kunai in the distance. Curious for some odd reason, he decided to indulge himself and see what was happening. It took a 10-minute leisure stroll to get there, but when he did, Naruto couldn't help but think it had been worth it. Anko was one of the ones he'd had his eye on, but she was hard as all hell to keep track of something that earned his hard-won respect. She was hated and feared by the village cause apparently she'd been an apprentice for one of the Nukenin of the village before he defected. Anko was sadistic, crazy, and had a well-known bloodlust that had the villagers shitting themselves whenever she was near. As he watched her train, Naruto couldn't help but think he'd finally found a strong female in this village worthy of his time. Anko was so different from the usual fair sex that he'd been exposed to. Most that Naruto meet were weak-willed and had such a idiotic air about them Naruto couldn't stomach them. From what he'd learned of her, Naruto wanted very much to turn her to his side. She had the right elements that he wanted in an ally. He just needed to give her a little push. However, there was a problem. Manipulating her wouldn't be easy. Ever since her sensei had betrayed her, Anko's trust was not easily given. There was that, and the fact that she'd been marked already. Something that made Naruto scowl as he remembered that he'd found that out just recently. Then again, Anko, for all her scandalous dress, smelled pure to his nose, something he knew couldn't have been faked. So, she was marked but not taken. That was something he could work with. Add that to the fact that when he found out about her mark, he also found out she despised it, made him in a better mood. Thinking on it, Naruto realized that was probably what he could use to gain her loyalty, and he already knew what he could use to sever the ties from the old man that she had. Smirking, he turned to leave. He'd get her, but it could wait until just the right moment. After all, Naruto had an abundance of patience when it came to getting something he wanted. He strolled right into the training grounds they would be using to find his sperm donor already there, waiting for him. That made the smirk turn cold and his face fall into his blank look he used most of the time. Minato was nervous, causing him to be somewhat fidgety when Naruto strode into their training spot. He knew this was a make or break circumstance. If he couldn't get Naruto at least interested in learning from him, he lost his chance to win over his son. It was to be expected. He was nervous or downright terrified of screwing up. "Hey, Naruto!" He chuckled anxiously, rubbing the back of his head and giving him a wan smile. "So what do you want to learn, son?" For his part, Naruto just looked at Minato like he was a bug that crawled under his shoe to be crushed. You're the one who said you could give me more power, so show me this power of yours. Right. Well, how about I show you a technique that made your old man famous? I invented it myself. That said, he got a childish grin on his face, and was practically jumping in excitement. Minato shifted until he was in a crouched position, his hand rapidly moving until a ball of blue chakra emerged, and he slammed it into a tree nearby. The tree was blown apart in seconds, leaving a mildly impressed Naruto. Okay, teach me that, but I hope that isn't the best technique you have. He drifted off nonchalant. Minato was a little disappointed that he wasn't as excited about it as most would be, but still praised himself of being able to keep Naruto's interest. The rest of the afternoon was spent with Naruto practicing with water balloons after Minato showed him what had to be done because he had to leave to get back to paperwork. Naruto conquered that step about a half an hour after his sperm donor had left, leaving him plenty of spare time to work on his own training. The next day Minato was stunned as a very bored Naruto demonstrated that step 1 was completed. Minato showed him the second step happily, and was again shocked when Naruto finished it 20 minutes later. By that time the yandere was pretty smug about himself. After all, his child was a prodigy. Giddy, he showed Naruto step 3 and Naruto decided he rather hated water balloons. Minato had to leave after an hour once again to tend to the mutant paperwork on his desk that just kept multiplying whenever he turned his back. Naruto didn't mind really, he never had anyone pay attention to him before when it came to training besides his mother, and it made him very uncomfortable. Of course he never showed it because that was a sign of weakness his enemies could take advantage of. When one said enemies were an entire village, it was best not to ever let your guard down. Naruto had the Rasengan completed on the 5th day, much to the utter delight of his sperm donor, who wouldn't stop praising him. Naruto had refused to really talk to Minato, but the 4th talked enough for the both of them. Naruto mostly tuned him out as he refused to let himself be taken in by the farce the yandere was putting up. Naruto would remind himself every day as his father went out of his way to make Naruto like him that this man was the one who condemned him. The yandere had chosen the village once over him, and Naruto had no doubts that it would happen again when the time came. He hated this village and all it stood for, hated it down to the very last rock. Minato, his opposite, Naruto could see that even what they had done to his son did not stop this man's love for his village. A small part of Naruto, a very small part that Naruto once thought dead, felt jealous of it. His father had never loved him, and would never love him like he loved this village. The very village Naruto hated so much was the village his sperm donor had sacrificed his very life for, and had sacrificed his son for. That very tiny piece of him that had craved for family love when he'd been a toddler resented the fact that even though his father was alive now, he never loved his own son. Maybe if he admitted to it, at least only to himself, Naruto knew one of the reasons he wanted to destroy this village so much was because he'd been sacrificed for it. His father had offered him up like a sacrificial lamb to the slaughter without any remorse, and Naruto hated him for it. After every one of those 5 days, Naruto had found a hidden cove in the forest surrounding Konoha to call out his mother to soothe his worries and to remind himself that she was the only parent he needed. The Kyuubi during those times would pet his back and whisper in his ear, never letting him forget what they had done to him. Naruto was close to breaking, even though no one could even see it, not even his own mother. Naruto just couldn't take it, the sorrowful glances, the pitying looks, the adoration on the faces of his enemies who had always looked upon him in hate. It made him paranoid to the point he sent his clones for anything he needed, including training 1 or 2 of the promising youths he'd picked up. Naruto knew that all of it was all for show. His mother always said when they started to fear him the most they would try to gain his favor, and it wasn't working. In fact, all of the attention was just making him hate them more. It proved to him how weak humans were, and demons hated weakness the most. Minato didn't know what to do. Everything was just so screwed up. Kushina had disappeared the night of the Kyuubi attack. His son was so cold, and he didn't know how to reach him at all. He'd hoped that since he was spending time training him that Naruto would open up to him, even if it was just a little bit. To top it off, he was still trying to find out the extent of the abuse Naruto had suffered. Not only had Naruto lived alone since he'd been 3, but Minato knew the seal had been somehow corrupted. Who knew what lies that monster had been telling his son? He'd seen only a small piece of it in that fucked up lullaby. Did she sing it to him every night? There were all these questions that Minato just couldn't know the answers to unless he actually asked Naruto. Yeah, that would go off well, he thought sarcastically. How could we even think of going to Naruto to ask these questions? Like, did you ever feel lonely? What's your favorite color? Do you have a hobby? Oh, by the way, how abused were you as a child? Yes, that would go off just swimmingly. Kakashi was avoiding him, so was the 3rd. The council was trying to get him to assassinate his own son, and his son might have been raised by the very monster who'd killed him. It was just so frustrating to see his only son reduced to that cold, broken shell of a person he'd see on that day when the bitch had the nerve to comfort his son. Minato had no idea how to make it right. What was he supposed to say to him? How was he supposed to act? He was trying so hard to get Naruto to just talk to him. Even in their training sessions, Naruto never once said anything to him besides what was needed. It was frustrating, and it made him want to scream at times. That monster must have told him that he wasn't loved for so long that Naruto must believe it by now, especially with how he'd been treated by everyone but that demon all his life. It frightened him to think of how much that demon could have twisted his poor boy's mind. But there was also something else that he didn't want to face either, but he knew he had to. That monster, that demon had raised his son. She knew his dreams, knew his nightmares, probably caused some as well, and knew his son better than he did. That caused this burning jealousy inside him that made his heart hurt. Naruto went to that thing for comfort, not him. He went to that monster to hold him, went to that demon to soothe his fears, went to that witch to confide in and wouldn't even talk to him. Burning angry tears scorched down his face as he thought of it. What he hated most was how he'd give anything to be in her place. Minato just didn't want to face that he was jealous, fucking green and envy of the monster that had ruined both of their lives. It was her fault. If she hadn't come, then he would have watched his little boy grow up, Kushina would be here and his life wouldn't be so ruined. Minato just could stand how lonely it all was. No one really saw him here anymore. His son was slipping right through his fingers like water and he couldn't stop it. Growling, he rubbed the tears away harshly. He wouldn't give up. He wouldn't back down. He wouldn't let that succubus that his son away. He'd reach him eventually. All he had to do was never let himself give up. Naruto sat in his latest tree trying to work out the kinks in his latest scheme, and keeping thoughts of families far from his mind. That man who cursed him would go down, he would be taken in by his lies. He'd heard it all before. It wouldn't be the first time someone had tried to get close to him to kill him, and wouldn't be the last. Still, Naruto couldn't stop the ache of wanting. He wanted a family, and the comfort that came with that. He didn't know love, but that didn't mean he didn't listen to people talk of it. Some said love was like going home. Naruto never had a home, so he wouldn't know. Others said it was like wrapping yourself in a warm, comfortable blanket, but Naruto never had anything like that. Some said love made you feel safe, but Naruto hadn't felt safe a day in his life. Who could, with people out to murder you from the day you were born? No, Naruto just couldn't wrap his mind around the concept of love. It baffled him. That didn't mean he never had wanted it, still wanted it. His mother, for all her affection, was a demon through and through. She had lived long enough that most of her emotions were long since dead, and that's what Naruto admired about her. Family wasn't something for him. Like love, like comfort, like safety or trust, these things didn't belong to him. That was something that only humans could feel, and Naruto was long since past being human, being weak. Wistfully he stared up at the stars, petting the silky fur on his mother's back. Naruto watched every day the happy people of this hated place laugh and love. Always on the outside looking and never being able to become a part of it. Gods, he was lonely. Demons were pack animals. It was in their nature to want to be surrounded by their own kind. Naruto supposed that was the real reason why he'd taken those girls, why he was corrupting those people. He wanted a pack of his own to run with, but these humans were poor substitutes for the demons that should have been with him. Idly he hoped his plans with Zabuza went well. He needed them to come through, or else he wouldn't last here much longer. Demons lived a long time, were very hard to kill, and typically were stronger than most humans. That is what made them seem immortal. In truth, a demon could die, could be killed, but it was just very hard to accomplish. Naruto wanted a demonic pack, so he had some people to spend his long life with. He wanted his pack. The next day had Naruto in a state of melancholy. Though his face was expressionless, inside he was in turmoil. There was no denying it now. This situation was getting to him. With the villagers not acting how he was used to, his father's facade, and all these things bringing to the forefront of his mind, confusing him. It had been a long time since he thought of family. A long time. Not since that day had he thought about family. In his distracted state he didn't see Iruka until it was too late, and they crashed into each other. Blinking, he eyed his old sensei for a moment before he even realized what had happened. Naruto, I haven't seen the real you in a while. It's always your clones. Is there something the matter, Naruto-kun? You seem distracted? Naruto hadn't seen Iruka since the scroll incident, but his clones had talked with him on occasion, and he remembered their experiences. Iruka was an enigma. He was the only one who ever actively searched him out anymore, and remembering the scroll incident, he was the only one who ever cried for him. As far as he knew, perhaps it was the stress, his own loneliness, or Iruka's seeming kindness, but Naruto felt he wanted to talk with him. Iruka-sensei, would you walk with me to the training grounds? Came his quiet reply as they both stood and dusted themselves off. Iruka smiled big and bright. Sure, Naruto-kun. So how has everything been going for you? It must be hard adjusting to the villagers' new attitudes and the fourth being back, huh? Hi, it is all very aggravating. Iruka laughed at his tone. Even though he had heard of Naruto's changes, Iruka couldn't blame him if this was what was under that mask. After all, no one could be quite normal as a shinobi, let alone how Naruto's life has been. It made him sad though to see him so emotionless. Well, I bet it is. I know if I was you I would have snapped a long time ago and flattened this whole village. He laughed heartily at that. Naruto just blinked and then imagined a giant dolphin flopping around destroying Konoha and screaming for water. Then he did something he hadn't done before. He chuckled, and then he laughed. It was a surprisingly pleasant sound, clear and holding innocence that one wouldn't expect. Iruka was taken aback for a moment. He had never heard Naruto laugh before. He only ever smiled or used a forced chuckle that didn't sound real. Soon he was laughing to in happiness with a huge smile on his face for being the cause of it. That's how Minato came upon them, his son laughing with a man he hadn't met before. At first when he heard it he was in a state of disbelief, and then there was a burning jealousy at this man. They hadn't noticed him yet, and he stood to the side to watch them. Naruto stopped laughing in surprise when he realized what he was doing and looked at the still smiling Iruka. Naruto had been raised by his mother, and had never had a father figure in his life, something he hadn't known he'd wanted until that moment. Iruka was the closest thing he had when he was growing, especially when he had used his mask, and it was somewhat unsettling to realize he actually looked to this man as a father. It made sense in a twisted way. There were no male demons he could look to. His mother didn't have a mate, nor did she desire one, and the only other one was the Shinigami, though he was more of a distant uncle. Iruka-sensei. Hi Naruto-kun, I've missed you. He said it without thinking and cursed himself afterward. Demons weren't supposed to have any feelings. Naruto blamed it all on the stress of living in the village now, with his sperm donor constantly saying how much he loved him, even if it was all an act. Iruka put on a kind smile and ruffled his hair a little. I've missed you too, Naruto-kun. Tell you what, how about I take you to ramen later? Like old times, and you can tell me everything I've missed, huh? Naruto nodded, not quite sure what had possessed him today. It made his heart ach and blood boil seeing that man take his place. Minato couldn't stand this. It should be him laughing with his son, buying him ramen and ruffling his hair. That should be him standing there, looking so relaxed. That should be him. Iruka had an urge suddenly looking at Naruto in that moment. This was the real Naruto. He could see the hidden pain in his eyes, and without thinking about it he pulled the boy into a tight hug. Naruto stiffened. This was the second time someone besides his mother had hugged him, but it didn't feel as wrong as when Minato had. Naruto had even admitted he had looked up to Iruka, and somewhat awkwardly he raised his arms to hug him in return. Minato stood there, mouth agape and heartbreaking. His child had spurred him, even had a mental breakdown when he had dared to touch him, and yet this man could hug him. He couldn't take it much longer. He would find out who this man was, and the burning jealousy he felt made him uneasy about what he would do when he did. Just as he was about to step forward, Iruka left, and Naruto turned facing him, a mask of indifference on his face. That training session was hard, harder than the previous ones, because Minato had seen that man take his place. It wouldn't leave his mind. An hour in he cut the lesson on summoning short to escape to his paperwork, and his thoughts on that man. Naruto didn't really mind. He was also caught in an inner turmoil and just couldn't understand what was wrong with him. Demons did not feel, but he had today. He had laughed. His loneliness was eating at him greater than before, and he couldn't seek guidance from his mother in shame. That night he had his mother tell him the demonic codes once more. It seemed he was slipping, going back to his human ways, and he hated it. In a place closer than one would think to Konoha, a crimson-haired woman was reading the reports from her spy network with her fists clenched painfully. Fierce emerald eyes seemed to glow with an inner fire as she read on. She was more than angry at what she had discovered, and realized the only way to make sure this information was true was to return to a place where she had been told her family had died. She had left Konoha because they had told her she had no place there anymore, but if what she had read was true, she had been tricked. She was blaring killing intent as she dressed and packed in a hurry. An odd orange jumpsuit didn't do much to camouflage, but she was never one to sneak around even if she was a shinobi. Kushina was going to get answers. If she had to beat every last council member to death, she would to get them. What if Naruto neglected by family Fem Kyuubi? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.